Full Metal Alchemist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray. And last time we saw you all, we were apparently being laughed at by Jen's goofy ass over here. We talked about two interesting topics that I bet you would never expect to be in the same video. We talked about Miranda Lambert's album, The Weight of These Wings, and we talked about the Nostalgia Critic. Ew! But
Selected
now,
works.
selected ambient works of the Nostalgia Critic. But this week,
Ambient is maybe the opposite of what I would describe. Okay, I'm not going to interrupt you
unfortunately,
anymore.
unfortunately, but we're talking about something different this week. We're talking about two things. We're talking about Jen's recommendation to me, which is the post I know what you did last summer ass horror slasher movie Cry Wolf. Cry underscore Wolf. The underscore is in the title, just in case you didn't know what kind of movie this was. And I recommended Jen acclaimed 2009 anime Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And now we're here to talk about it. But first, Jen, you have made a habit of seeing some cool fellas in concert, and you've just kind of kept going. So who, pray tell, have you seen recently?
Don't give a fuck about pronouns. I can't finish that line.
I was about to say, I was like, don't get us canceled, Jen.
I saw Tyler the Creator in Cincinnati. I bought these tickets back in November. It was my birthday present from my fiance. Was that we got these floor tickets for Tyler the Creator, which I will send Jake some videos so that they can edit them into the video. But no, the Chromacopia concert was wonderful. I fucking loved Paris, Texas.
The film.
Seeing them as the opening act after going in completely blind to their music was just such a great surprise. They've got like Outcasts plus Brockhampton type shit going on.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
well, it's just two guys, and so they have a very good vocal dynamic going that reminds me of what Outcast's music I've listened to. But they're also
Interesting.
very clearly influenced by like Brockhampton, by frankly Tyler and Odd Future in general. And they just had a great opening set. Lil Yachty left some things to be desired, but
Ah.
it was an okay time. To be honest, I wasn't hugely looking forward to it anyway. Um, there
Actually,
wasn't
what
enough.
live music did he end up playing? Because he's got his like older, like trap stuff, but he's also got the new psych rock shit.
Well, he played the hits, as in he played that song that he did with Kyle, and
Right.
which is fine. That was a good
Yeah.
moment. That was a good moment, comparably. And he played a couple songs off of Let's Start Here, but not the ones that I like. Uh,
Aw.
I was waiting for I've officially lost vision, and it didn't come, and I felt bad. But Tyler, it was great. I love that artists are realizing that they can do longer sets with deeper explorations of their discographies because we got through the entire first half of Chromacopia in basically a nonstop streak.
Ooh.
And then Tyler took a break, took a walk along the catwalk, and then set himself up in an not I'm saying this in a nice way, in an Eras Tour style rotation of his albums. And so we got shit off of Goblin, we got a ton of Wolf representation, which I was
Wow.
surprised by. Um and then he went back on the catwalk and did some more Chromacopia shit. And then
Chromacopia.
yeah, we finished the show with the big hits. You know, we got See You Again, we got New Magic Wand, we ended
Hmm.
with Balloon and I Hope You Found Your Way Home. So it was just a
Oh.
great career retrospective with Tyler, which, and this is the second time that I've seen him. I saw him at Forecastle 3 years ago when he was
Yeah.
touring Call Me If You Get Lost. And the songs that he played off of Call Me If You Get Lost surprised me a little bit. As he played What's Your Name while he
Ooh.
was on the
Oh,
catwalk,
yes.
which I loved. But the thing that I love about shows like this is that people have figured out the songs that they can just play on the speakers to give themselves a vocal break.
Mm.
And What's Your Name is absolutely one of those. Because you can
That's
just
yeah. Yeah.
because you can just play that song and do the first verse, and everybody will be singing along to the Young Boy verse, and you can give yourself a break.
Hmm.
And I
No,
appreciate
definitely.
that because I'm a reformed theater kid. I appreciate the idea of a break,
Yes, no, I completely understand. It's like,
of
and
having a break while the show is still going on. And Tyler gave himself more than one of those in a way that I really respect.
all of the footage I've seen of Tyler the Creator concerts, like I remember like last year when I was like going through the specials that like Kendrick had on Amazon, like the one for Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers and stuff. So I watched like all of the ones that were online or on like a streaming service of Tyler's, and like I like watched the one where he gets on top of that car and it explodes and there's fire fucking everywhere, pyrotechnics and shit, and it's like these are the guys who are holding up the mantle, not just because they have the shit to back it up, but because they have that vague theater kid ass energy where they're just extra enough to get up there with like a silly costume and like really kind of bring it performance wise. That's why I was so like with Kendrick, like when you saw him too, I was just kind of happy because he's somebody else who you really like. If they can't do a live performance, that feels like an essential part of them is kind of lacking in some respect.
I have a dollar bill in my wallet that Tyler threw at me during
Ah,
safety.
and you know what? It's funny because you say that you went and you saw Tyler and he had a great show, and you know how he repaid you is by going online and immediately saying he wanted all podcasts to be banned from the internet.
Well,
We're fucked,
I
Jen. Tyler wants us gone.
well, Tyler needs to talk to me first. So
He was probably talking about Joe Rogan and shit anyway. He doesn't care about us.
I want him to.
Tyler, please listen, senpai.
No, I don't need him to care about my opinions. I really don't.
Nah, I don't need. I don't need that
I've
kind of
I've
worry in
talked
my
about so
life.
many I've talked about so many artists on this show who I am like one good or bad moment away from interacting with on social media. And I'm just like, I don't ever want that to happen.
Fucking
I don't need
the
that.
razor's edge looking at JPEG Mafia like
Well, not even that. I'm thinking about Tyler and Gaius Guevara.
yeah, yeah. There's the in the few occasions where this channel has flirted with getting kind of within like an artist sphere, like that one time when oh, who was it? It was somebody's dad. It was we both really love him. You saw him live, I think.
Genesis?
Yeah,
Genesis Owusu?
Genesis Owusu's dad. Yeah, that's
Hey!
right. Genesis Owusu's dad was just like, "Hey, this review of Smiling with No Teeth's really good. I'm really proud of my son." We were like, "Aw, that's sweet." So sometimes they can be good. Sometimes,
Oh
occasionally.
no. I don't feel the obligation for that.
Oh, and shout out to emo band The World is a Beautiful Place. I'm No Longer Afraid to Die. They also watched our video on them. We were very grateful for that.
Backwash. Shout out to Backwash.
Backwash. Fuck yes,
Also,
Backwash. Been an
Backwash also
OG.
gave Jams and T a shout out.
And the first one, the first artist I think that ever shouted us out. So we never forgot that shit.
We're
Uh
always going to shout out Backwash for shouting us out. Well, okay, not
Literally.
us. Not us. I was
Well,
not a
us
Jams
now.
and T. I
Us
was not a
now.
Jams and T OG.
It just took a little while. That's all. That's all.
It did. It did. And I'm glad we did. But I'm always going to pay respect to the five, which I was not one of. That's okay.
Well, what matters is that you're here now.
Yeah.
This is me now.
Okay, J-Lo, you gonna watch that movie with me?
Which one?
This is me later.
Wait, is that wait, what wait, hold on.
Is
Excuse
that what the
me?
movie is called?
Oh no, this is me now. That's what the movie is called. But yeah, I
Why
am
did I
not
come up with that in my head? That's a
that
perfect album title.
it is. I actually had that on the short list of things to recommend to you if you got a little frisky and pissed me off enough. I was going to recommend the two movies that she made. Rhiannon chimed in by saying, "I still think you should do it."
Maybe we will, but the fact that we brought it up means that we can't do it in the short term.
One thing I want to talk about real quick is the fact that I have elected to begin doing something that all of my buddies always do that I never do because I'm a lazy piece of shit. Because we watch a lot of movies. We talked about that last time, where we are avid movie consumers. And one thing I've started doing is keeping track of my favorite first watches of a particular year. And since I have a little bit more time, considering my new job, I've been able to get to a lot of shit that I just have had on the back burner and been like, hey, I really, really need to watch this. Like, I can't tell you how long my friend Zach, friend of the channel, Zach, has been being like, Jake, if you do not watch Ang Lee's Lust Caution, I'm going to drive up to Kentucky and kill you. And I'm like, I'll do it. I swear to God, I'll do it. And I finally did it this year. But
Where does he live?
Texas, formerly Illinois, so he knows how to get here. But so I have seen a lot of new movies this year. In fact, the most recent addition to this list, other than the one I'm going to talk about, is that even though I am a film major and a cinephile, I'm so bad because it took me until this year to watch Casablanca. I'm so bad. I have owned this
Dude.
movie for 5 years and I had not seen it.
I also watched Casablanca this year.
No shit.
Well, not for the first time, I
But
will
still,
admit, because they were doing a special Valentine's Day screening for it
uh,
at Cinemark, and so I took my fiance, and that was their first time watching it.
oh,
And so that
okay.
was a wonderful experience, and I have that fresh in my mind.
That I mean, like everything you've ever heard about that movie is so true. Like perfect screenplay, perfect pacing, and like the most impressive thing about it to me, frankly, was just Bogart and Bergman are just like they're
Fire,
demolishing that shit. Like every
fire.
fucking time they open their mouth, it's just like, oh God, the classics. Like I felt like my fucking grandma watching TCM. But Casablanca, great fucking movie. I've also watched I've been trying to catch up with some Billy Wilder movies because I like The
Yes.
Apartment is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I just had not seen any Billy Wilder. So I watched Witness for the Prosecution, which is fucking awesome. If you like grumbly old men doing court shit, that's gonna be a good ass time. Some Like It Hot, gender dysphoria classic. I'd never seen Marilyn Monroe in a film before, weirdly enough, and so her in that movie is amazing. Her and Jack Lemmon are just fucking like bah, killing it. Lust Caution, I watched, fantastic. Something I watched recently is the Clue film. That
Really?
I had never seen it before, and I was like, basically, it had been sold to me as being like, oh, this is like the original Knives Out. And then when we watched it, and it was like, wow, that was actually kind of exactly what that was. But it was also like that's probably my favorite Tim Curry, if I'm being real. That is so good, and also features maybe the best joke about somebody being gay in a movie I think I've ever seen, depending on the ending. You have to wait for it. You'll know what I'm
The
talking
the nice
about.
thing about Billy Wilder is that I've seen Some Like It Hot, but there's so many fucking Billy Wilder movies that I still need to see.
I have been told, I'm pretty sure Morgan said that his favorite was Ace in the Hole. And then I looked up what Ace in the Hole was, and I'm like, that sounds like it is going to depress the shit out of me. I cannot wait. I'll get to it eventually. One thing I know that I've been getting into is that like I've always been a fan of his just because The Royal Tenenbaums has kind of always been one of my favorite movies. But I've been trying to show Rhiannon more Wes Anderson movies, and because I've only seen like half of his filmography, so felt really bad. So we watched like The Grand Budapest Hotel. It was kicked off by the fact that we watched The French Dispatch, and I fucking loved The French Dispatch. Like,
I love French
it's
Dispatch. I can't,
thank you.
dude. I
Why did
saw
everybody say that movie was mid when it came out? I'm
I
so
saw
pissed.
Phoenician Scheme
Yes.
last night.
Yeah, how was that?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Awesome.
Okay, I want to put this in the context of French Dispatch and Asteroid City
Yes,
in,
I
in a
still
very
haven't seen that.
in a very certain way, which is that both of those movies work at a very structurally truncated pace of like there's a lot of stuff in French Dispatch and in Asteroid City that is like, oh, this is a break from
Hmm.
what's actually going on here.
Hmm.
And Phoenician Scheme doesn't have that. It's like a
Interesting.
fucking 105-minute breakneck pace movie with a lot of great comedy and drama, with a lot of meditation about class, about colonialism, about religion.
More like
There's a lot.
woke Anderson.
There's a lot of shit going on here that is ultimately a daddy-daughter movie, and that's what I
That
love
sounds
about
right.
it, which is that the two central characters, and really the three, because Michael Cera plays the awkward third in the mix.
How did it take this long for Michael Cera to be in a Wes Anderson movie?
He should have been in these for the last 15 years, but
Correct.
this is easily the funniest movie he's made since Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Ooh, that's a lofty one too. The Fantastic Mr.
Like,
Fox is fucking good.
this is a funny movie despite its heavy political concerns and storybook-esque observations on power and how power degrades when the subject becomes inundated with obligation to family.
Interesting. That's a very, very Wes Anderson theme. Very like, Royal Tenenbaums adjacent. The Elliott Smith needle drop in that movie is absolutely fucking demolishingly sad. Like I forgot just how like Royal Tenenbaums is simultaneously, I think, maybe the funniest movie he's made and also the one that makes me want to die the most. So it's like, and also immortal fucking performance from the late great Gene Hackman, who just fucking
Rest in peace.
bam, rest in fucking
I
peace.
don't
That
I don't know
that
that
man
we
was
ever
the
said
fucking
that on
goat.
this show because it did
Yeah,
happen while we were recording this show.
yeah, it fucking like that one hit kind of hard because I went back and looked at that man's career and I'm like, God, I have loved him in everything I've ever seen him in, from as far back as The Conversation. I wanted to build to the fact that I watched a movie that I know you have also seen, because I watched a ton of other movies. I watched like Anatomy of a Fall. I caught up with because that movie, everybody was talking about how great it was. Agree, it's great. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I'm a writer. Why haven't I seen that movie up until this point? I'm bad. But the I naturally I saw the TV Glow. That's my kind of number one right now.
There's a
Hal
video
Hart.
on that on this channel right now.
There
Go watch
is.
it.
You can. I also watched Hal Hartley's Trust, which is Riley's favorite movie, which is a perfect film, frankly. Adrian Shelley, love, love, love. And Steven Soderbergh's debut, Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, is incredible. But the five-star movie I watched this week, I want to talk about very briefly, is a French sort of French Canadian film called Le Chambre Rouge, Red Rooms, directed by Pascal Plante. This came out in 2023, completely missed me, and I learned of its existence, saw basically all of my friends had it fairly highly rated, and was like, this sounds interesting, and I can't sleep, so I'm going to turn this movie on.
Oh God,
And
that was a mistake.
well, let me just say this much. If I wanted to sleep, I picked a bad fucking choice to watch. Red Rooms is the most upset a film has left me in maybe ever, possibly years, maybe since I saw Hereditary opening night, which fucked me up beyond all reasonable belief. But this was a worse, more primal, more festering thing. This Red Rooms is basically, the story of it is about the sort of case, prosecution, and trial of a serial killer in I think somewhere near like Montreal or something. And he is being put on trial, and basically there is a woman who is particularly interested in the case because there was a huge media circus around it. So she is attending the trial and observing it, and basically is like really involved in it in a kind of like true crime-esque way. And the movie also has a lot to do with like not just because the victims are serial kill or the victims are serial killers, the victims are serial murders. There is also an element of this where the victims, before they were killed, the videos of their murder were distributed on the dark web. So this movie is very contemporary and touches on a lot of things that could frankly make it really bad just by including it because you hear like the dark web and like, like all the like secret online chat rooms. And it sounds kind of like this sounds
Hokey.
like, yeah, it sounds like it could be written by like a 60-year-old man who doesn't understand the internet. And it is so very much not that. This is an incredible movie. Like I was locked the fuck in. This movie, a lot of it is just dead fucking silent. I think the two movies that I compared it to the most is that it really reminded me of Cronenberg because not just because of the Canada of it all, but just the coldness of the setting, the kind of like the Dead Ringers-y kind of tone of it is just like it is the exact kind of movie that is programmed to get under my skin because again movies like Dead Ringers are like some of my personal favorites ever, and it's a movie that feels like a corpse or a carapace. It's nasty, but it's also kind of David Fincher adjacent in how it deals with a lot of nihilistic and kind of lurid subject material, and the filmmaking is very polished and stuff. And it begins as kind of a courtroom drama, and it ends as something very, very different. There is a scene in this movie. There are
No
two scenes.
spoilers.
No spoilers. There is one scene where there is nothing graphic shown in this movie, but there is graphic content that is heard. And
Oh, I was just about to say it. I was just about to say it.
that scene is fucked. Like, oh man, like that just kept going, and the whole time I was like,
This movie took me 2 days to watch because we got to that scene.
it's
And so just to be clear, you hear one of the videos through a doorway, and that's enough.
yep, you're like, okay, that's it. We don't need to do
Me,
this.
me and my fiance, for the record, my fiance is a social worker. And so when we
No.
heard that, we decided to turn it off and go to bed.
That was a very smart choice. It does not help that the victims in this movie are all young teenage girls, and like the third act of this movie goes some places I would have never ever predicted that it go in, but like it is so great at how it carefully feeds you information. There is one scene in this that is just the main character of the film looking at something on her computer, and she gets up and you're like, why is she looking at this? And then when she sits back down, you don't know this is going to happen, but she is going to work out. So she comes back and sits down, and she is wearing more revealing clothes. And this single editing choice, considering what you just watched her look at, you're just like, oh God, oh Jesus.
Well, not even considering what you just watched her look at because you don't see it.
Yes, but the thing is, the movie so expertly is like, but what do you think she was looking at? Like that's the whole movie is it's just like, what do you as an audience member think this person is looking at?
It's
And
the
that
I'm gonna
is
pull from your review. It's the whole bit with the guy in Seven
mhm,
who you don't see what he actually did,
the
but he's
lust victim.
crying while he tells you why he did it.
And the whole time you have to imagine in your head, because that's what this movie is about, of a guy putting on a bladed dildo and doing some shit to a prostitute. Because thanks, this is the world we live in, folks. And I would say that this is maybe the best movie that I've seen that is about just kind of the idea of true crime and the dangers that kind of levels of obsession can pose. Like all of the most disturbing shit in this movie, save for the audio scene, which definitely is as bad as it sounds. But there is something that happens in the third act of this movie that involves our lead, and I'll say a makeover that had my jaw on the fucking floor. I highly recommend that everybody go seek this out. It's on Amazon Prime. You can rent it for very cheaply.
It also might still be on Shudder available to stream.
And I would say that like this treads the line, kind of movies like Seven or Silence of the Lambs, where I would consider it a thriller that goes into horror movie territory, and thus becomes a very it's just it has a movie with a lot on its mind in the same way that the films of the other film that I compared it to in my write-up was Perfect Blue, in the sense that it feels kind of like it has that Satoshi Kon fingers on the pulse of the internet, in the same way that Perfect Blue kind of had ideas about fame and obsession, and even like the editing and filmmaking is similar. So I wanted to shout that out just because it's a kind of under the radar movie that I really feel like everybody, if you have ever gotten on with the kinds of movies that I like, I will probably never watch this movie ever again, just because it sincerely made me like kind of nauseous at the end of it. And I was like, I don't know if I can handle something this psychologically taxing ever again, but man, did it leave a fucking impact on me. So anyway, let's get to some fucking goddamned music. Jen,
Music!
what do you want to fucking talk about? Because we got
Let's-
two albums up on the deck today.
Let's talk about Turnstile.
Turnstile.
I saw Turnstile back in 2022 on the tour that they did for their previous album,
Glow On.
Glow On, and that was the first time I saw JPEG Mafia.
Damn,
And
that
I
must have been
saw-
a baller set.
It was banging. Oh my God. But we're talking about the new Turnstile album, Never Enough, which I'm just going to go ahead and lay my stake, even though this wasn't technically my album pick for this week. I'm just going to start by saying that this feels like a spiritual successor, if not even a sister album to Glow On.
Yes.
In that the band's commitment to blending s- dance punk with hardcore. Whereas I listened to both of these albums back to back
I did as
before
well.
we recorded this because I wanted to get a sense of it. It started to feel really coalesced to me. And Glow On has a lot of dance punk songs and a lot of hardcore songs. This album has dance punk hardcore songs all throughout it. And what I mean by that is that Turnstile found a way to take the two different sounds that they were kind of flirting with on the last album and coalesced them into an album that continuously, on a song by song basis, blends both of these sounds in very interesting ways. The vocals of the lead singer Brendan has always been a kind of key to why that last album worked. But he himself found a way to make those vocals work on tracks that blended kind of both of those sensibilities a lot more on this album. So if you're looking for an album that genuinely hybridizes both of those sounds, the kind of dance punk and the kind of hardcore metal shit that you loved about Glow On, you're going to get these kind of weird crossbreeds on Never Enough. And your mileage may vary on whether or not you actually like that. But Jake, tell me how you feel about that.
I picked this album mainly because Turnstile and Glow On were one of those bands and albums that came in the middle of a year where we were just like every week we were shotgun blast by a new incredible release. Like 2021 and 2022 are going to go down as two of the best years for music ever, I think. And this was just an album and band that just completely skipped me by. Like everyone I knew who was interested in hardcore punk music was saying how good this was, saying how they had kind of like finally come into their own, and I just completely missed it. So I took this opportunity to listen to Glow On because I hadn't yet, and then listen to this. And Glow On is fantastic. Really good album, really enjoyable album. And I love the kind of, they blend this sort of really, I would almost like, I know that this subgenre technically exists in another context, but like they have a kind of dream punk sound to them where there's a lot of spacey reverb and a lot of space in mixes in general. And like, but the drums are like super heavy for those who were actually into the Death Heaven album Infinite Granite. This, I think, is actually a really good kind of evolution of what they were doing on that album. And Glow On is a lot of fun. I really love how kind of the rhythm section on that album really varies it up constantly, so that even if the album is like constantly very aesthetically in the same mode, the kinds of rhythms you're getting on that album are like kind of Latin in nature on some like time. Like they blend a lot of shit together in the ways that another incredible hardcore punk kind of fusion band, you might what might be my favorite band of all time, the Mars Volta. And I was really into that, and I was also really into like their lyricism, their spirit. They embody a lot of good things about hardcore punk right now. And this new album, I do feel like, is very much a sister album to that record. And you're right, it's a great synthesis of the kind of two parts of their sound. To me, though, it has a slightly less consistent hit rate because the blending of both sounds kind of, I don't want to say it dilutes what they're doing because that feels really disingenuous and kind of sells it short, because this is a good album that I had a good time with, but at the same time it feels like the extremities that the sides of their sound were kind of poking at on the last album are a little bit filed down in order to more aptly synthesize them. So there are moments on here that like it almost feels like a more consistent album than Glow On, but it has less overall highlights to me, if that makes sense. Like I really enjoy shit like the opener, Never Enough, is like a really like a fucking like this is a huge shotgun blast of a song. Like you will not sound or hear a hardcore punk song that sounds bigger than this probably all year, because the scale of it is enormous. I love the kind of mixing and production style that they go for, where like punk music just it thrives under being skeletal, but I really admire when bands go for it when they kind of decide to blow it up a little bit and make punk music that has atmosphere. Like that's something that's sincerely lacking, and this is something that this band does incredibly well. That said, I do think that when they're synthesizing these sounds, like the Latin rhythms that are on that last album that I enjoyed so much, that's a little dialed back on here. It's in the name of probably trying to maintain a little bit more consistency. So I feel like this is a essential step in watching this band evolve gradually, but I'm maybe a little bit more interested to see where this album takes them more than where they are, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what you're saying, but I enjoy the genre synthesis a lot because listening to these two albums back to back, I get a kind of treat out of both of them
Hmm.
where I like the almost, I mean, I've listened to this album a lot, but the unexpected shifts that happen in between tracks on Glow On are a treat.
Hmm.
But also the more organic blends of the two genres that they're working with on Never Enough are just as enjoyable, if not more. Because I love, like, for example, the, oh my God, the horns on
Hmm.
Dreaming are fucking incredible. Just these
Amazing.
just these little production elements that they stack on top of each other to make this genre blend happen are wonderful. And that's the thing, is that if you're a fan of Glow On, you might see the dance punk and the hardcore influences as very binary song to song like I do. But on this album, I see all of that shit as kind of coalescing kind of 90% of the time. There are
Hmm.
songs that are very much, this is this thing and this is that thing still. However, the blend is a lot more thorough in a way where you will have songs like I Care that
Rager.
make those sounds work in contiguity with each other like nothing on Glow On does. So it's kind of a taste thing to me.
Yeah, I would certainly say so. Though I will say this band, no matter if you land, like I think that our assessment of this album is very similar. It's just that it's again, like you said, it's a taste thing. But what this band does have is incredible instincts. And those instincts buoy this entire record like the whole time. Like there is one moment on here in particular, that being the 6 minute long Look Out for Me, which just demolishes. I think this song is fucking amazing. Like one of the
Yeah.
best like loud rock songs of the year. Full stop. It's like it's just this incredible fucking epic. I think it's where the album's sound and writing kind of meet at their best moment. And Not to mention, I'm always gonna ride hard for a band that just goes and names a song Slow Dive. Like, yeah, man, me too. I have also seen Slow Dive in concert. So yeah, absolutely. Like if this is something that like that's actually an interesting thing. Like if you are into like dream pop and just like dreamier sounds in general and you want a good like accessible gateway album into punk music, Turnstile are the band for you. Like this needs to be on your priority list because they will meet you exactly where you're at.
It helps that Brendan, and I said this about Jane Remover too, of like it helps that Brendan is such a good singer.
Yes,
Like
yes.
the vocal melodies on this album, and I said this about Glow On. Well, I didn't say it, but I'm saying it now. The vocal melodies on both of these albums are incredible, and Brandon is just such a great singer that he can sell these songs all by himself.
Absolutely. There's an incredible synergy on display. Like these guys have clearly carved out a particular niche for themselves and they are, taking that football and running with it all the way to the end zone. Like the fact that any sort of hardcore punk band is still able to thrive in today's modern musical climate, like a band like this or a band like Soul Glow, miraculous. We need to keep supporting them.
I was thinking about Soul Glow while listening to this album before, like today, earlier today. And I just, there's still those, I may have oversold it. There are still those very much sharp transitions between style.
Mhm.
Like the transition from light design to dull in the middle of the album, you very much get that sharp contrast in the band's ability to deliver good dance punk and good hardcore.
For sure. For
They
sure.
still know how to work with that contrast, but so many of those songs embrace and work to hybridize that contrast in a way that Glow On really doesn't do. So even though these two, I would still call them sister albums, they don't sound the same in a lot of ways. Their instrumentation takes a lot of different approaches. So if you're in for a more frenetic experience, maybe go to Glow On. But if you're in for one that's really trying to reckon with these two very niche subgenres that are both kind of capsized by the ability and the consistency of the vocalist, go to Never Enough.
Uh, Basically, I think this just boils down to listen to both of these albums because you will end up really fucking liking at least one of them. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of what your personal taste and aesthetics kind of determine. So like this gets a thumbs up from me.
Yep.
It's not quite as confident as thumbs ups that I've given in the past, but like this is exactly the kind of band and exactly the kind of music that needs to be supported right now. And they're cool people, generally speaking, from what I've seen as to in terms of their presence online. So thumbs up.
I saw him live. I'm gonna see him again because they're touring with Jane Remover and Mannequin Pussy. So
Oh, that's gonna bring the fucking house down. Hell yeah.
I'm gonna tell the story of that show when that
Hmm.
happens. Um, so look forward to that. Anyway, my album pick for this week is I'm not gonna front, possibly the first immediately negative review we've had of a new
I
album on the
love I love
show.
that we haven't conferred about this album at all, and you're just like, yeah, we're not gonna be too hot on it.
Well, okay, here's the thing. We're reviewing the Addison Ray album. Addison. So let me not bury the lead. Addison Ray is a person who blew up on TikTok, who starred in a couple of shitty Netflix movies, who put out a pop album this year. And I normally wouldn't be so straightforward about this, the social media aspect of it and the Netflix movie aspect of it, if this album didn't sound so generic and boring. Oh God. Let me get this straight. I don't hate this album. It's
I don't
got
either.
it's got good production under it. It's got good vocal melodies under it. I think Addison is a good singer. What really has turned me off from all this is the writing.
Oh, what you didn't leap out of your seat when the sexy baby voice talked about having a cigarette put out between her tits?
I just
I don't normally use this crass terminology. I am merely quoting her for the record.
that
That
is
is
a
on
lyric.
the album.
That is a lyric. I just what I had part of the reason why I've been so reluctant to talk about this was because I had friends IRL who told me that there was something here. And if you're watching this, I love you, but I disagree.
I disagree.
Of like I wanted to like this, you know? I want to be on the front line for somebody who could be the new face of pop, but this ain't it. And
Uh,
I don't even because it's not that bad. But that's the
no, no, no,
trick. That's the trick that is going to pull on you is that it's not that bad. Is that it is listenable and it does have a lot of good production and that it does have good vocal melodies under it. But I'm telling you, I'm just going to say this, none of these sentences make sense next to each other.
no. I didn't have any preconceived notions going into this because I have entirely avoided talk of this person online. Like I literally had to be like, "Hey, Reed, do you like know who this is?" So because like I was fucking like, yeah. I think I got her confused with Tate McRae,
Oh my
which is
God.
another person I don't know anything about, whose name I just keep hearing. So and now they're doing like a pop girly thing, and I knew I heard one thing was that a friend of mine said that one of the songs on this album was really great. And I will totally say that like the closing track on here, Headphones On, solid. It's good. I think
Boo.
this song's good.
Boo. Diet
This
Magdalena Bay.
I
Fuck
mean
you.
I agree. Like, yeah. That's and see, that's the thing is that like I and I wanted to get my one compliment out of the way first because yes, as Jen said, this is not horrible. It's not unlistenable. It has good qualities, but the thing is that the things about it that I don't like are so pronounced and so constant that I really feared walking into this segment being like a huge spoil sport because I was just like, the
Oh
first thing
no.
about it is that like the vocal melodies themselves are good, but man, I wasn't kidding before. I fucking hate this style of singing so much. And the thing is too is it's the only mode she has as a performer is the kind of soft, whispery, kind of seductive, and it's like there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but like if you do a Billie Eilish debut album kind of thing, you better be doing it as well as Billie Eilish did it, or else, and
That's
instead,
that's doing Billie a disservice because even her debut EP had more vocal variety than this
ex
does.
exact.
This album sounds like what if somebody who didn't like Billie Eilish tried to conceive Billie Eilish's
Mhm.
debut album with a mix of like the worst aspects of Brat.
Yeah, it
Like I'm not
is.
gonna front. This is an album. I hate New Yorkers.
Oh my God! Thank
I
you, thank
hate.
you. Oh God, the first song on here, I was just like, is this the kind of album that I'm gonna be in for? And lo and behold, listeners, I love New York. God, this song is
This
insipid.
album. I don't mean to denigrate anybody. I've been to New York. I love New York. I love New York. But dear God, somebody who is shallow about New York, I find intolerable. And
Just
this is a person who is shallow about New York.
and it's just like the repeated phrase of just like I love New York. It's like the only idea this song actually has, and it is just insipid. It is kind of like an American East Coast Charlie XCX wannabe. That's the closest it comes to, because it's doing like this very kind of bright, shimmery, very down-tempo production. It's a very sedate pop album, which is not bad for the record. I love lots of down-tempo pop. And again, we had stuff like Billie Eilish and, Lord's early stuff that are very much like this feels like it is trying to echo melodrama in more than a couple of ways. And I love Lord's melodrama. That's a great album. Um, Premier COVID album for me. This, on the other hand, is just like it's doing that thing where it's like I'm presenting a caricature of a type of person, but like it's also like a takedown of this type of person. And it's like, that's cool. Is it interesting? And the answer is a resounding no. Because all of these songs are so built around the idea of being like superficial and being like, oh, she's like she's not real, and she has all the performative femininity expectations thrust upon her, and like things are hard, but I'm just gonna do drugs because life is hard and drugs make it easy. And does this not sound exhausting to you as I explain this? Like, do you not already just get the point and be like, is this really all that's happening here? And like,
Well, no, I mean, the thing that I most learned about Addison Rae off of all this is that she doesn't actually do drugs. Like, she
it,
likes drinking, but she doesn't like doing drugs, which is fine.
yeah,
Have you? Not to be a judgment. But if that's all that I glean from all this, aside from general, like, I love being in the city, but I'm a little bit depressed.
like
What are we doing?
you see a song title like Fame is a Gun, and each song that progresses and gets towards a song like that, I'm like, are we gonna do this? Are we gonna do the thing where it's just like the dark side of being a pop star and fame? Did you know that actually the life of glitz and glamour is not as appealing as it appears? And I'm just like,
But
oh my
I wish it
God.
appeared with any of the grit that you just put into your voice, because
And
it doesn't. It just appears to like,
and,
oh,
and
it sucks.
it's all the sexy baby voice. It's the same thing. And the reason I single out the final track, Headphones On, is that like there is not really, and the reason I would understand Jen's position here is that there is nothing meaningful about the distinction between this song and every other song on here. I just think it is a culmination of all of the album's best instincts at one particular moment, because they certainly don't really culminate anywhere else on here. Like the production is very nice, but I have a hard time trying to appreciate something on the basis of that production when it feels like it doesn't matter to these songs at all. It feels really relatively incidental. I actually find like the more I thought about it, the more the sound of this album, which is solid, and what it's about don't mesh to me. Like I don't really get any, and like that's not something that everybody needs to do, but it is something that smart artists do when you make the album sound like what it is. But when you don't have that, I just have to question a lot of the decision making process of just like, this isn't like a very bombastic or showy album to kind of emphasize the hollowness of fame, or something that's like trying to like I'm trying to come up with hypothetical, more interesting versions of this album while reviewing
But
it,
it's
just so I
not
can say
about
what's wrong
any
with
of
it.
those
But
things,
it
Jake.
isn't. It isn't. It is about Addison Rae being like, I'm in a place and I'm drinking, and there's the boy, and I'm gonna get fucked in the back seat of the car, and I'm like,
And
great,
I
hun.
hate sounding like this. So we grew, or not we were not around for this, but criticism grew past this kind of superficial discussion of the
Hmm.
pop girlies and their desires and how they express them. But dear God, I don't think any of these desires are real.
No, God, like this
None
is
of it feels real.
it comes from somebody who feels like it's like it feels like watching a movie where the main character is watching who should be the main character of the song. It feels like living vicariously through living someone who's living vicariously through someone else. It is kind of it just it is it's a very short album, and frankly, like, on the one hand, good. I'm glad that this album isn't longer, but also with two borderline interlude tracks on here, it doesn't like even give itself enough room to have like a thematic undercurrent. Like, it's just kind of like, here's like seven songs that are kind of the same-ish, and it's just like, I this does stand, at least right now, it stands out from like every other major pop star's sound, because you've got Charlie doing the kind of hyperpop derivative, kind of Sophie adjacent sound. You've got Taylor doing like the singer-songwritery thing that she's doing now. You've got Beyonce doing whatever the fuck she feels like doing right now, because
And you got
Renaissance is whatever. And like,
Tate McRae.
and this is just like, I mean, it's pleasant sounding. It's just
Diet Pepsi is the only time I feel like I'm really hearing Addison's experience, and it's the most generic experience imaginable.
it's a
I, I'm
song
getting
called Diet Pepsi.
I'm getting fucked in the back seat and I'm drinking Diet Pepsi. Like, what?
And
What else do I have to glean from this?
and
There's
like,
no nuance here.
again, these song titles give away the game so bad. Fucking Money Is Everything. It's just like, gee, guys, what do you think this song's about? If you had to guess, what do you think the song's getting at? Because not only is it about that, it's only about that. It goes no deeper than its title thematically. It's just like, I can't take money to heaven, so like, what? But I like it.
You
And
got to
it's
keep
like,
that
oh,
voice to a minimum, or this is going to all sound disingenuous. I don't want it to sound disingenuous. This is the thing, is whenever I review an album, I want the artist to be good,
yes, of course.
but
Like,
this is not good.
and I went into this with as open a mind as humanly possible. And I will say the one point on the album that did genuinely like actually irk me is the times like these, life's no fun through clear waters, where it's just like, I understand this is ironic. I understand that I'm on your wavelength, but it is really hard to be a person who lives in the year 2025 and listen to a song that's just like, life's not fun if things aren't hard for people. And it's like, blow it out your ass, honestly. Like, I got
Oh
nothing
yeah,
here.
that's fucking white New Yorker talk.
Uh-huh. It's just like, if
And I'm being a little bit disingenuous even saying that.
I was gonna say, like, considering the news about New York that we've gotten in the last 2 weeks, maybe we shouldn't be so judgmental. But this
Listen,
is this is a type of,
I'm a Kentucky podunk. I can't help but be a little bit judgmental of New Yorkers at all
look,
times.
it's okay. We will forgive you if you register to vote right now and go vote for Zoran. That's all I'll say about that. Please, please, please. Thank you. Thank you for listening to everybody. Don't
Well,
listen to this album. It's not very good. Thumbs down.
the first time we've given a thumbs
First thumbs
down.
down, baby.
But I'm glad we did it because I wanted to kind of challenge us a bit within, because all of these albums that we reviewed are
Great. They've been
artists,
great.
yeah, are great, but also artists that we have either covered or ones that we, in my case of Jane Remover, have been like, Jake, you have to listen to this.
Yeah,
Just
like,
whereas this was more, this is my album for this week, and it was more, what if we listened to this? What
it
would
was
happen?
we had less stock in these albums, and I think that was, that was good for us, like, it lets us, get off of our favorite artist collective dick for a little bit.
Yeah, and I want to keep doing that. I just hope it doesn't keep giving us this result.
Yes, like, because that's what this is all about, is that we want to try out new things. I always want to try out new albums and new releases, regardless of what they are. So, like, this is not saying that we're going to go immediately back to only reviewing things that we're going to love, but we're just trying to give a full portrait here That's all we're saying. And hey, if you're doing the first couple episodes of a podcast, don't pick something to talk about that you don't have much to say on. Like, that's just bad form. That's a bad idea. It doesn't matter if it means that you're a little tryhard and it means that you want to praise something. That is so much better than trying to listen to people circle the wagon for 30 minutes.
I mean, yeah, the fact that we don't have a lot to say about a lot of these songs should frankly tell you enough because we will tell you we listen to a lot of mediocre pop albums, and this is a mediocre pop album that there's not a lot to say about, and we just don't have room for that in this economy, man.
No, no. And I mean, like, I don't know what we're covering next week. We might cover the new Lord album. I don't fucking know.
I was gonna suggest it after we stopped recording this, so we'll probably do it.
So, hey, here you go. Sneak peek behind the scenes, baby.
So my pick for this week, we're going in
Cry
the same
wolf.
we're going in the same order that we did last time, only because in both respects, the last episode and this episode, Jake's pick has been much more iconic than mine. But
Hey,
my
we can turn the tide on Cry Wolf.
Oh, certainly. But my pick has been more indicative of tastes that I want both of us to explore, that we definitely share, but haven't particularly seen in the examples thereof, right? When I recommended Miranda Lambert, I knew very well that it was not going to be a fucking YouTube clickbait choice, but that's not what we're here for. We were there
Hog
last
for
episode.
Miranda Lambert.
We were there last episode, soy jacking from Miranda Lambert. We were there last episode for the Nostalgia Critic, and based on the comments, we were right to think so. But this episode, I'm doing a film by one Mr. Jeff Wadlow, whose career has fascinated me for the better part of a decade. The movie that we're talking about is his debut feature, Cry Wolf, which is a prep school PG-13 slasher movie, which if you hear all three of those things put together, you might immediately run away from this video. But if you are me and Jake, you will have a sick part of your brain that is inevitably curious to see
Neuron
what
activated.
to see what comes of this description. So I just want to know, Jake, what did you think this movie was going to be, and what, in a sentence, is this movie actually?
I think I think going into it, I expected something that was like a very post Scream, post I Know What You Did Last Summer, maybe even potentially post Final Destination style horror movie that like really revels in kind of the teen melodrama, but like this basically I expected quintessential 2000s commercial horror, which is something that like Jen and I, this is like our era of garbage, and like it is.
Goosebumps.
Yes, and like the what is the it wasn't I Know What You Did Last Summer, but I think there's like an urban legend kind of style horror movie. Actually, it might be called
It
urban
is
legend.
urban
Yeah,
legend.
urban
Yeah.
legend. Horror movies that kind of after the turn of the century, they kind of became obsessed with very contemporary modern ideas and like were very clearly made by older people trying to capture how younger people in the age of the internet were talking, and like the problem with this subgenre is that it's modeled after Scream. Like it is 90s, but like this is all traced back to that moment in horror because it was like the most dominantly commercial horror movie that existed for like until Saw and Paranormal Activity came along. So you had this kind of model, but the difference between Scream and this is that Scream had this little guy by the name of Wes Craven writing the screenplays, and in those
Whoa,
movies,
whoa, whoa, whoa,
it
whoa. Don't get your fucking names mixed up, motherfucker. That was a motherfucker by the name of Kevin Williamson.
very true, very true.
Wes
Forgot.
Craven did not write that.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Now, Kevin Williamson also wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer, which
Yes.
sucks, but let's
Yes, it
pay him his
does.
dues.
Yes. But the team of these guys writing these movies and directing these movies it doesn't necessarily matter that the Scream movies are written by people who might not understand how teenagers talk because the characters in Scream talk like Scream characters. They talk like incredibly cinelliterate nerds who are all like in this kind of median between realism and comedy, and it's kind of a strange place to exist in. So basically, everybody that copies this but doesn't copy the dialogue and writing style just comes out of the gate, falls flat on their face instantly, and creates this kind of pulpy melodrama that I live for this slop, man. I live
Ah,
for it. It is the exact kind of shit that, like, it's a coalescence of, like, people not understanding a younger generation and trying to capture them, and also very 21st century anxieties bleeding into what a movie is about.
because here's the thing with this segment is that I have a very different objective than maybe we set out for this show, which is that when I recommended Cry Wolf, I wanted to give you something that you would genuinely enjoy because it kind of sucks and because it's made by people who are kind of out of touch. Because we enjoy the 90s, 2000s teen horror of like R.L. Stein adaptations and we enjoy Degrassi, the trashy parts of Degrassi, The Next Generation.
And the parts where Drake
This
gets shot.
this feels like a perfect coalescence of all the good instincts that went into Scream and all the bad instincts that went into studio movies of the aughts, where you have a lot of cutting corners. But I want to give a compliment to this movie, which is that the corners are cut very tightly and very well, honestly. For a PG-13 movie, it sells its subliminal violence very well in how it structures itself. Because the premise of this movie is that you have this British kid who plays the hot British teacher on New Girl, if you're familiar.
Yes, Ree pointed that out. I believe he is also in I actually think he might be a British teacher in Pretty Little Liars as well. Yes. Yeah, he is. He's apparently
Oh,
the pedophile teacher from Pretty Little Liars. His name is
um,
Owen in the film.
yes, his name is Owen in the film, but Owen is a transfer student at a fancy prep school, and he gets involved with a bunch of students, and they invite him to a chapel, and they play Cry Wolf, which is a classic.
It's werewolf.
Yeah, it's werewolf basically. It's get untrustworthy with your friends. I was about to say get naked, but you don't do that. Uh,
Well, they do, like a little.
Not during the game, though. Anyway, the thing with Jeff Wadlow that I find fascinating is that this guy has a recurring interest in perverting children's activities.
Yeah, Imaginary. That's another one of his movies, right?
Yeah. His last movie was Imaginary, where what if your favorite teddy bear was possessed by a demon? I haven't seen it yet. Uh, I want to watch it. But his last movie was Truth or Dare, where what if the idea of the game Truth or Dare was possessed by a demon who could make your body fuck up and kill you? And there's legitimately a great scene in that movie where somebody tr gets compelled by the demon into walking along a
The
rooftop.
Roof. Yeah. That's like the one
You've
scene
seen
I
it,
remember.
right?
Yeah. I've
Okay.
seen Truth or Dare, and that's like the one like really memorable, like, oh wow, this is actually like decently well executed, like part of
Yeah.
that movie.
There's a great moment where they try to throw a mattress over a fence, but the fence has like
Yeah.
metal spikes on top of it, and so the mattress is immediately caves in, and they didn't solve anything at all. And that's what I mean where I say that Jeff Wadlow is a good visual idealist, but he is
Yeah.
not a good conceptual writer.
Hmm.
Or at
I
least
think it's
I
fair.
don't want to say he's not good. I want to say that he's kind of stuck in this idea of like perverse children's games, and this is where that begins. Do you know how this movie came to be?
No, I do not.
So Jeff Wadlow won a $1 million grant from Chrysler.
Okay, fucking.
By making a short film in the early 2000s.
Hmm.
And he got a blank check for $1 million, and this is what came out of it. And so I
Huh.
want to say this is extremely admirable.
Yeah, I would agree. I would
I
agree.
didn't.
Like,
You're gonna get John Bon Jovi in your movie, and you got $1 million in your budget. You got $1 million budget, and you're gonna get John Bon Jovi to sign on to this. That's like not to be like stunt casting this, stunt casting that, but there's a lot of shit to admire here. And that's what, when I was watching this movie earlier this week, I was taking all these notes. I'm just like, yeah, this part is kind of good, but it exudes so much stuff that we find ridiculous and enjoyable that the fact that this is my bad recommendation shouldn't be a negative, in that I legitimately think this is going to be a kind of piece of shit that we're gonna love because this fits so well into shit that we enjoyed when we were growing up and that we have a lot of nostalgia for. Like the bad filler Goosebumps episodes or the ones that were adapted from like Goosebumps 2000. Like have you seen the Perfect School episode of Goosebumps?
this feels like the brain equivalent of having something on the tip of your tongue. What is this? I feel like I know
The
this.
one where the kid gets shipped off to a military school and they're doing like injecting them with mind control scenes and
Yes!
shit.
Oh my God!
And his name
Holy
is I'll
shit!
never forget this name. His name is Brian O'Connor. That's the main character's name.
Hello there, I'm Brian O'Connor.
Yeah, exactly. He's the most Irish child to ever live. But if you know the episode, you know what I'm talking about. It's a two-parter called Perfect School. Go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
If you like
Can second that.
if you like this segment, go watch the Perfect School episode of Goosebumps. But anyway, Jake, give me more of an impression of what you got out of this whole affair.
I took little notes throughout this that were just various observations and little like jokey haha moments, but like putting this on, uh I want to get one thing out of the way that like kind of coincides with what you say, is that I think there is one overridingly quite admirable, very impressive thing about this movie. And that is, I think that I would say a good 50 to 60% of the time this movie is blocked exceptionally well. There are so many dialogue scenes. Like I'm thinking of like dialogue scenes between like Owen and the main love interest that just kind of follow them around like in the library or on the school campus. And like the way that the camera just is able to kind of follow them and like without appearing showy or like the movie is actively trying to impress you with the camera work. It's this aspect of it is really, really tight, really solid. It's something that as I get older, I find a greater appreciation for, just because the art of blocking is something that most people do not notice or care about and is like easily one of the most difficult things about the filmmaking process. If you have ever made anything where everything you like, every shot that you like put into place and shot setup that you have is not just a static shot and you actually want to move your camera, you start watching some Martin Scorsese movies and you want to try some shit. It's hard. It's really fucking hard. And this movie pulls it off really well. There is more than a little bit of genuinely great technical acumen in this film that like put it a neck above stuff like I Know What You Did Last Summer, where it's just like, yeah, these movies are probably roughly the same in terms of raw entertainment value, but like that movie's not as well made as something like this is. That is to say, I do have many aesthetic complaints about it.
There are many
Notably,
aesthetic complaints, but let me go out of my way to say the editing in this movie extremely good, especially considering the limitations that they inevitably had to go through.
I have a note about this, is that this movie is very frequently edited like an 2000s anti-piracy commercial.
But it works.
Yeah,
That's the
like
thing, though.
it fits with the theme of the movie, but like it is 100,000% like you look at this movie and it looks like the "you wouldn't steal a car"
Part of that is
commercials.
just because of the ugly color grade that's done in all of the scenes involving the murderer, which
Yeah,
was
that's
inevitably done to get a PG-13. And I don't,
and
here's the thing. Here's the thing. When movies are edited for PG-13, I look at it in two ways. If it's done by a big fucking studio like Blumhouse, I spit on it, I shit on it,
Blech.
I make fun of it all
Ew.
day long because it's cheap and it's annoying and I
And
hate
you
it.
didn't have to do it with
And they're
Blumhouse. You have the
bad at
money
it.
to not do that shit.
Yeah, you have the money to not make a PG-13 horror movie. But Jeff Wadlow, with $1 million, made a decently edited PG-13 horror movie
Yes.
that does what it needs to do with its editing. That being said, the script that gets it there leaves a lot to be desired.
The like I'm pretty sure like the opening of the film like more or less has this kind of like there's a brief kind of flashback to Owen like leaving where he's from because he's like an exchange student, and it's very funny because his father is played by an actor who is 1000% not British. And weirdly enough though, throughout the whole movie it sounds like the actor playing Owen is faking his British accent even though I know that's his accent in real life, but it's very strange. That's
It's
just
just
kind of the
because he's the
acting.
only one doing a British accent in the whole movie, and so it comes
Yeah,
off as distracting when you're seeing him in an ensemble cast.
yeah, that checks. And there's this part where it kind of like it'll flash back, and then in like sort of select moments, there are kind of moments where the movie will show you a flash forward of like a what if scenario potentially, and it like really blows out the visual style of the movie. So the first note that I have for this is nostalgia critic white balance ass walls.
Well, it's just like it has a very like pixelated, high contrast edit to all of its kill sequences that were definitely edited out of the movie and edited
Oh,
back
for sure.
in
For sure.
for a sequence that involves they're all kind of foreshadowing how everyone is going to be
Hmm.
killed, and they cut to like hallucination sequences of all of those kill scenes that got partially cut out, and they're
Which,
all done in this very like it looks like a Saw movie. Like I'm not gonna
yes,
front.
yes.
It looks like what you imagine a Saw movie looks like if you've only seen like 30 seconds of a Saw sequel.
And like the graininess is kind of there, and like in that instance it's like that's a decently effective form of stylization, whereas there are other less successful attempts to kind of censor the violence, like in the kind of opening sort of the Drew Barrymore fucking Scream opening kill scene. Like
Oh
you
God,
you cannot see
awful,
shit, you can't see shit.
awful.
There's
It looks like the Alien versus Predator
it
Requiem.
does, it was, yes, where you were just like I see that things are moving, that's about it. And
And it
then we
also has
kind of
the best worst punchline to a kill scene for 2005, which is that the killer calls her cell phone and the phone rings, and that is how they are able to find her and kill her. Like, I'm sure that was admirable in 2005, but that has aged horribly.
and like and it's kind of showing you sort of the angle that this is going to be getting at. Like the if the underscore in the title wasn't kind of indicative enough, is that this is going to be a very
2000s tech.
2000, yeah, like a kind of just like, oh, the internet is coming up and we're having lots of anxieties about it. And on the one hand, I will say that the contributions to the elements of the movie that involve just like people talking to each other, this element is as bad as you imagine it being. Like the way people talk with like tech lingo, and like the using I am as a verb, like it's exactly as like as you think. The thematic aspect of its incorporation honestly kind of works. I won't lie. The way this movie does kind of harness a sort of a bubbling anxiety about like mob mentality is like, yeah, it's really preachy, but it doesn't not work. Like I really want to put that in the movie's favor. But but
It's been
there
20 years. It's been
yes,
20
it's been 20
years.
years. It's gonna be really hard to get over that, but to me, it is something that makes it more entertaining. And like this movie bleeds 2005 so hard. Like there is a cake needle drop in this fucking movie, in case it wasn't embarrassingly obvious that this is 2005. Then what the biggest like thing that happens in like the first couple minutes of this movie, at least of me watching it, like I'm getting a drink, I'm having a good time, Rhiannon's next to me, and then suddenly Jared Padalecki 6'3" ass comes onto screen with the most fuck ass haircut you have ever seen in your life.
Okay,
Oh man.
this was filmed before Supernatural started. However, it was close enough to make it embarrassing for him in
It's
retrospect.
well, it's also funny because Jared Padalecki's character in this is characterized as he has one character trait, and that's that he's Texan.
Yeah, is that
That's,
he's a
he
podunk
has a
Texan.
Texas flag in his fucking room. I'm
And
pretty sure.
everybody makes fun of him for the fact that he's like a Texan, or at least the British guy, the British kid does.
Oh yeah, and that will come back in other points. And there is like they basically Owen like meets this girl, this alluring, mysterious redhead who like yes, if I was an exchange student, I would have been gaga for her too. Fucking like, don't come for me, movie. God damn it. But she is like kind of like, oh, she's doing the mysterious kind of like I'm trying to think of the like character equivalent that she would serve as in like a Scream movie, but it's not quite coming to me. But like she
Because she wouldn't.
yeah,
Doesn't.
she
There's no
she
equivalent.
she's got an aura about her. Like, she's
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
certainly.
mysterious. And so she's like, "Hey, you're new kid, whatever. Come to this little like church with my friends and I after school and we'll play this little game. We'll play, werewolf and you can
Wolf.
meet Cry Wolf and we'll meet everybody. And everybody's in there in a little circle. They meet in the little tiny church. And man, the dialogue in this movie. Who Nelly? They immediately call Owen O-Dog, which is good job, guys. That's really good. And
Sure.
there is stuff like just because you're Tom's new butt buddy doesn't mean you have to be his bitch,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
there's a lot of there's a decent bit of listen, I here's my thing. Here's my nuance about this is that yes, movies involving teenagers in the 2000s are homophobic, but in retrospect, that has kind of aged a little bit well
I mean,
because
like teenagers in the 2000s were homophobic. Like,
it's more accurate. It's more accurate to the period.
no, yeah.
But when you consider how this was made, it's still a little bit embarrassing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like,
Like you shouldn't have written that, but you definitely captured something by
it is
accident.
the perfect combination of like out of touch but also kind of in touch to just be funny. Like this is the kind of homophobia that I just find hysterical. Like maybe
Yeah, it's
that's
the kind of
toxic about me.
homophobia. It's the kind of homophobia that is written by obviously out of touch straight dudes that
And on that note, there's also a point where like the first kid who gets kicked out of the circle of the game of Cry Wolf is Jared Padalecki immediately is just like he's just pissed because he's fat.
yeah, that one there's no excuse for. Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
it's like there's no excuse for it, and it made me cackle like a fucking banshee. Like
Oh yeah,
it's just it's
no. This is what I mean. Where that like I told you this was gonna be bad, but I told you we were gonna enjoy it.
and and the moment where the movie kind of locks into place is just like they play this little game and then Owen kind of picks up on the fact that like he's like an obviously better liar than like most of the people there. Like he gets marked as the
Yeah,
wolf
well the thing is
and
that the whole thing is that okay, so it doesn't really make sense until you know the ending, which is that the
yeah,
girl is setting him up the whole time.
yep.
And so that when she picks him as like the wolf, he has to prove himself as being able to deceive everybody else, which is funny because he cannot tell when anybody is lying to him at all throughout the rest of the film, which becomes especially important when you realize what's going on.
It like at this moment, like Ree and I were like actively trying to sort of call what this movie was doing of just like, okay, maybe the order of the people here that they're addressing is going to be like the order the people start dying in, and maybe the fact that like, she's the one organizing the game, so maybe she's like a manipulator of some kind. And then like, oh, with Owen, he's clearly able to read these guys, so maybe it's going to be about him like doing a kind of investigative thing or just trying to do like his own version of Scream, basically, except it's just kind of updated, but he's like doing his own sort of like tropes, but they're not movie tropes. They are basically high school sexual politics. And it's like, oh, you think from this scene that they are setting him up to be a very intuitive and very like able to read people well. And this characterization does not come back at a single like ever
Yeah, no,
at,
he
at
is
any
not
point in the
able
film.
to interpret what anybody is doing, despite the fact, and I just want to say this, I watched both the first two Scream movies in the past like 2 weeks,
Mhm,
coincidentally, to get ready for this, or
mhm.
not even to get ready for this, just coincidentally. I
Just
put on
happened.
Scream while I was at a party with my friends, getting a little drunk, and I had a great time. But then I was like getting ready for this. I had rewatched Cry Wolf already, and I was like, you know what? I should watch Scream 2 to get a little bit more of a taste for what Wadlow is more or less ripping off.
Mhm.
And what I learned is that Scream, despite how you may feel about the filmography of Wes Craven, has very consistent characterization
Oh no, I totally agree with you there. I
and
mean, like
very
I
consistent.
overridingly like the Scream franchise. I just want to throw that out there. I'm a very lukewarm fan.
No, I roast you a little bit because Wes Craven is easily the guy who we disagree the most
Yeah,
on his oeuvre.
that's yeah, with basically all of like I'm pretty sure every friend I have, save for Morgan, is just like all in on Wes Craven, and I'm just kind of like he's cool.
I'm not all in, but you need to watch Shocker, which
Okay, fair enough.
I'm gonna put a pin in that. I might even put it on an episode of
Hey,
the show. Uh, but anyway,
hey, I might throw in Red Eye one day. Who knows?
what
Uh,
I love Red Eye. What I figured out about these movies is that Scream has very consistent characterization in terms of the intuition of the
yeah,
characters,
yeah.
where like everybody spends all their time trying to figure out who could possibly be behind it. And
Hmm.
Scream 2 is especially good at deceiving you because
Hmm.
Scream 2 has, Sydney's new boyfriend and Randy's new buddy, who, spoilers, does turn out to be the killer. But
Justified's very own.
yeah, the Timothy Olyphant character, who, God, oof.
Fucking
Mwah!
he's so fucking fun in that movie.
I love him in that movie.
That this movie is missing a Timothy Olyphant level ham performance. That would have like really like that. And you know what? That actually
Yeah.
that leads me into the fact that like they play the Cry Wolf game. He kind of impresses the girl. Things are progressing, and then we go into the school and we cut into the classroom, and boom, teacher Bon Jovi
It just
immediately.
it just becomes incessantly dull as soon as the initial game of Cry Wolf happens. The whole
Uh-huh.
movie just flatlines until people start getting murdered. And
Yeah,
even then, it's
there
not
is a
that interesting.
solid I want to say like 25-minute long span between these two sort of like points as which like the classroom and the first murder. And this is where the movie just kind of starts running in circles for a little bit of like trying to fake people out in terms like both the audience and the people within the movie. And this brings me to like my main point about this. I think this is the dumbest cast of characters that have ever made it into a slasher movie
Oh
because
my God.
literally every single time someone in this movie can jump to conclusions, they will. Without question. It's just and it's like it's not even like a reasonable jump to conclusions. It's like
Well,
if somebody like
the thing is that I want to give you a cop out, which is that a bunch of the characters are supposed to be in on this big prank. So they're supposed to
yes,
kind of be stupid, which is what makes certain things like the very Goosebumps scene of him coming back to his dorm and only his roommate's part of the dorm being trashed.
that's
Like
so good.
that is what you do when you want to frame somebody, and that is the thing that happens in multiple Goosebumps books and Goosebumps episodes.
And you're just like, well, gee, I wonder who this could be. And it's like, spoiler, you're right. Like in a movie like Scream, that would cleverly, like, you would immediately see that and you're like, okay, but the movie wants me to think it's the roommate, so it's probably not. Like, that's my
Yeah.
favorite part about the Scream franchise is because, like, and it's, in fact, it's probably why I don't like the Scream franchise as much as most people. And it's because, to me, the most quintessential viewing of those movies is the first time you watch them because there's a kind of conversation that you as a viewer and the screenwriter of those movies have as you're watching it where it's just like you know what the movie's doing and the movie is very like knowingly poking at all of these things and being like, are we doing a commentary on this, or are we satirizing this, or are we trying to fake you out here? And it's like there's a kind of just sort of like it makes you feel very involved in the process. And then there are movies like
Which
this
is
that
why the new movies suck shit. Uh,
I like them a lot, honestly.
well, we'll talk about it. Go on. Let's talk about Cry Wolf.
Okay, the thing is that these movies don't quite understand that level of just sort of audience engagement. So when you get a clue, your instinct is to go, "Oh, the movie is obviously feeding me something." It's like, "No, that's the thing the movie wants you to notice and then draw an immediate A to B conclusion from." And then, you just kind of keep moving. So you're kind of one step ahead of the movie. And in one particular regard, I was one step ahead of this movie that makes one scene at the very end very, very funny to me. Uh, I
Go ahead and
have,
say it, because I don't even know
well,
what you mean.
okay, the entire twist of the movie, I realized it happened like 10 minutes before it started doing the saw, like, oh, it's actually the dead body that's been there the whole time. Like he's there in the interrogation room, and I'm just like, dude, who do you think did this? It's the fucking girl. Like
It's the girl.
I was sitting there like, does the movie know who its murderer is yet? Because I feel like I'm waiting for the movie to get there and it's not quite there yet. And it's very funny. But the one note I have is that like in this boring part of the movie where I'm kind of trying to take notes to say stuff about things is that when the sort of blown out lighting kind of keeps coming back and coming back, I put lit like Wind Waker ass movie because there's
Oh
so
my
much
God.
bloom. There's so much bloom in this movie, and then I have like the camera work, the blocking is very good. There's this fucking like I Reed did point out that she was just like the two like main people, the girl and the guy. She was just like, these two are very obviously going to be criminal justice and psychology majors respectively, just because this is the exact brand of toxicity that these majors just absolutely fucking
Well,
cannot
and I
stay away
just,
from.
there's a gigantic plot. Oh, okay, so let me just explain the plot of the movie. The plot of the
Yeah.
movie is that everybody in the Cry Wolf game who is not the exchange student conspires to fuck over the exchange student and one of his friends or one of their friends because she, the friend, pulls a prank involving the urban legend that they started by scaring one of them that gets them all like basically quarantined at the
Hmm.
school over the holiday.
Yep.
But the thing is that several signifiers that something is going wrong happen before they hatch the conspiracy to get back at them.
Yep.
Like the dorm trashing happens before the Mercedes character does the prank
That is so confusing.
that leads to the conspiracy.
It's kind of a baffling choice. Like to be honest, it was like when they do the initial thing of like the email prank that they send to the school of just like, hey, there's a serial killer. Oh,
They
look
basically
out.
spread an urban legend via email that
Mhm.
somebody has been killed at a different campus, which turns out to not be the fucking case, by
And
the way, because she got killed on that campus. But everybody just seems to ignore that and not realize that that's what happened. But
and
whatever.
they keep then they come up with their own like MO for the serial killer, and they basically invent one so that they can do that. And you know what? I will say this concept is like low key. I really like it. Like there is something.
It's like the best version of an early 80s slasher.
It is a like this is a bunch of shit that a bunch of fucking middle upper class prep school students would do to fuck around with people. Like I completely buy the premise of this movie in this one particular respect, and I think that there is like a kernel of a great idea that's almost like it kind of mirrors where some horror is at in terms of like there's I don't want to oversell it because this comparison is like low key a bit blasphemous considering the quality, but like there is kind of a Kiyoshi Kurosawa thing going on there with the way that they play the whole like the it kind of feels like the idea of it is that it's a virus, but not for a computer, but for people. There is something to that I feel like the movie could have capitalized a lot more on, and that like if this movie were to be remade and they try to like take that angle, that would be the way I would do it personally. Like I feel like that would be a really interesting it would just be a really interesting way to approach this. And it reminded me of probably the worst movie I've watched for the first time this year, which is in fact the Kiyoshi Kurosawa Pulse remake of the American one, which resembles this movie in a lot of really alarming ways, honestly, except it's much worse.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, and there's like the style of this movie also infiltrates into the kind of scene transitions, which are literally just the you wouldn't steal a car, like zooming
Yeah.
kind of like it literally
Which
does that.
which works if you don't think about the resemblance that much. Like
Well,
I'm gonna give it credit that those little like flashpoints of, kind of work in context.
honestly, I'll one up you there. I kind of think the fact that they resemble the piracy commercials works because of the early internet of it all. Like,
Oh,
it
you're
makes
so
sense.
right.
It makes sense.
I
Like,
don't even need to excuse it. You're right.
yeah, like I don't feel like that point even needs to necessarily be defended. And there was another thing that this really
As
reminded me
long
of.
as you don't think of it as inherently ridiculous, it works.
Yeah, exactly. There's another thing that this reminded me of, which is like something that is, I don't know if you've actually played this or not, but it is very much in the same vein as the I Know What You Did Last Summer. But this whole thing, mega Until Dawn vibes. Not the movie.
I know of it, but I haven't actually played it front to back.
I would say that Until Dawn, a lot of issues in and of itself, but like very much
I
takes a
know the
lot.
twist of it, which is that, like, yeah, the whole thing was orchestrated by one guy who wants to kill everybody.
Well, and that's the thing is that Until Dawn takes a lot of the same ideas that this does, and there's like sort of an initial incident that's not entirely unlike what's going on here, even though it's a little bit more coded towards like the 90s and stuff. But like it's got that same vibe where all the characters are like very obviously trying to embody a specific like horror archetype, and everybody's kind of like trying to slot into their Scream counterpart roles. But
Yeah. And that works in Until Dawn because you're playing a video game where the enjoyment of you as a player is that you get to embody these archetypes and make decisions for the
and
characters.
you more importantly you get to make the choices within that game that
Yeah.
like if you it takes away the element of when you watch movies like this you're so often like oh this person's doing something stupid so you get the opportunity to not make the stupid decision or if you hate the character you can make the stupid decision and they can die so there
Right.
is something to that but there's also like there's fucking there are moments where this movie showcases its propensity for comedic screenwriting, like when
Yeah.
Jared Padalecki's character in this kind of section of the movie, the hardest I laughed while watching this, hands fucking down. Like I'm pretty sure we had to pause the movie. I laughed so hard. Is Jared Padalecki refers to masturbation as bending it like Beckham.
Okay.
I I absolutely couldn't deal. Like I did not know what that man was getting at or why, but I'm so glad that he said it because it robbed me of my ability to breathe. And when the room gets trashed, right, Texas sucks on the wall because he's the Texas guy.
Because he's the Texan. He's from Texas. He doesn't even
And
sound like he's from Texas. He just got his normal voice on.
then they've got fucking like they call people like town is a slur in this movie.
Townie. You
Townie's a
don't say
slur.
that in America. Who the fuck do you think you are? We don't say that in America.
I included
Where's Jeff Wadlow from?
we well we
He's
find
American. We
he
don't
is.
say that.
I thought
Yes,
him
he
being from a
is.
different country would have explained a lot of the oddness because like the prep school angle feels like it could be a New Englandy thing, but also it could be like an English thing. And well, I
Motherfucker
mean,
from Arlington.
another thing which this takes after in a lot of ways, that I'm definitely shifting the hemispheres here as to what we're comparing things to. But when we get a little bit of Owen's backstory, my note is Persona 5 main character backstory ass, which
Well,
if you have played it, you know what I mean there. But the persona element of this movie very strong of like the
Persona 5 especially,
yes,
I can see.
yeah,
Even though I only got through one dungeon of Persona 5 before I was like, I'm taking too long to do this and I'm miserable while doing
well,
it.
like
Uh,
all the
and
way
I
up,
quit the game, but I
like
did get through the first dungeon. And so I do see what you're going through here.
and like I mean like the like all the way through like the pervy teacher too. Like it's
Yeah.
fucking like
Yeah.
and what was fuck there's oh yeah. there's there's a part in the movie where they are in the library. They're in like the restricted section of the library, like Owen and the
Uh,
main girl, and like they go over to like where they like supposedly like nobody's allowed over there. Like they sneak over there, and she's really laying it on thick that she wants to fuck this guy. It's like, all right, lady, settle the fuck down
it's
a little bit.
actually a very well directed horror scene.
No,
Like I'm not gonna front. It's
it
really
is
good.
it is pretty solid. Like I love the way that the fluorescent lights that just like the
Yeah, there's like
like
motion sensor lights on, and
that's
then they're worried that somebody is getting close to them, and they it might be the killer, and it might just be a person, but either way, it's bad, right? That is the kind of shit that I like about this kind of thing.
I did accidentally kneecap my ability to enjoy the very start of the tension in this scene because when they go to the restricted section, they like I kind of got into the thought process of just being there's like why like a prep school having a restricted section is so funny just because like why would you even have those books in the library to begin with, but like the notion of them going over there is just like, and she's like aggressive making fuck me eyes at Owen, and it's just like, oh yeah, baby, fuck me where we keep Mein Kampf in the library. Like there's
Oh,
this girl is so fucking edgy, man. Like she is so like she's so like trying to be the bad girl, but like her actress is like she feels like she should be the nerdy best friend in the Scream movie that probably dies like first or second.
okay. So there, I need to piss.
Like what the fuck? Deborah Gordon? What? Deborah Gordon from Dawn of the Dead is in this movie? Why?
Okay, so the thing about this movie, the big problem with this movie, is that the main character is supposed to be like the most intuitive person alive in the first act, but the entire third act predicates upon him being a fucking idiot who can't question anybody's actions, despite him spending the entire second act questioning literally everyone's actions.
Eh, there are bits and pieces of this movie that try and hint at it trying to be like that's what they're going for, right? And they're trying to be like a little bit more self-aware, and they're trying to give you signifiers that this is a smarter movie than maybe its contemporaries. Like the book that she's holding in the library scene is fucking No Exit by Sartre, and it's like,
Whatever.
come on.
Whatever.
And like there then there is a scene where a knife falls out of his backpack because he gets framed, and so someone puts a knife in his backpack, and this knife is a fucking sword. This fucking thing looks
It's
like
a
it could be
fucking it's a Bowie knife on roids.
a
Like
prop from Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey falls out of his backpack, and everybody's just like, oh
it looks like a
fuck.
prop from fucking Commando. Like
Yeah. And like the fucking there's also like this part where I remember that somebody is like trying to open like oh yeah, it's the like one of the people who he thinks is might be the killer. They're like they're in that like little kitchen room that looks like the kitchen from Jurassic Park, and there's this scene where he's at the other side of the door and he sees the killer who's in like the little like the little outfit, and they're like looking at each other and they're like trying to move through, and this struggle with the door lasts so long. They're
it
like
lasts an absurd amount of time.
it's like comical. The way this movie is paced is so fucking strange. Like it will have a string of scenes that'll just kind of like lay into kind of the teen melodrama of it all, and like, oh no, is the girl in this fucking Bon Jovi, which oh no, fucking insert slippery when wet joke here. Uh
Oh.
uh
Whoa. Hey,
and
woo.
I love when they have the reveal in the movie of like basically it's the point at which you discover that everything that has happened in the movie so far, save for one thing, has been everybody in the Cry Wolf game messing with Owen. And it's like basically cuts back to all of those little scenes that we talked about earlier and then adds a couple seconds onto them to kind of fully contextualize what happened in them. And in them, basically like you put all these scenes together and it's a perfect embodiment of the oh no, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions meme. And like just very literally. And like once like the cops get involved and like all of this shit like kind of boils together, it's literally like it's just a prank, officer, it was just a prank.
Yeah, like I don't have any idea what Owen is gonna go to jail for aside from manslaughter. Like he doesn't even really shoot that guy on purpose.
No, like
They
I feel
fight each other. Like you could get off on manslaughter for that shit.
if his daddy's got prep school money, then like he'll get a lawyer and he'll be fine.
So he kills Bon Jovi's character because Bon Jovi was fucking his girl, more or
And
less.
that's honestly like the biggest motivating factor. It feels like that
And he had nothing to do with this, for the
Bon
record.
Jovi cucking the main character is like the most it's like the thing that makes Owen smart.
He realizes what has happened after he accidentally shoots Bon Jovi.
Yeah, basically. And like Bon Jovi had like there was a gun in the desk and you think that like oh it was actually him and he was trying to cover up the fact that he was sleeping with the student at the very beginning who died in the terrible lit Alien versus Predator Requiem scene. And it's like oh it like ties together. But the whole time that this is wrapping up and it's just like hey dude, have we not squared away the your friend who was sleeping with Bon Jovi? Like, are we pretending like she just wasn't here this whole time? Because if she was, I've got some bad news for you, especially if she knew that she was being fucked around on. Because like Dodger is very clearly way more involved in the plot than this subversion wants you to believe that she is. Because like at first it's like, oh no, I was being manipulated by Bon Jovi. I was whoa, we're halfway there, living on a prayer, and then
Well, she acts like she was like, that's not. Never mind. She acts like she was coerced by
yes,
him, but then it becomes very clear that like she got jealous that she was cheating on him with another girl, which
hmm
is the girl that we saw die at the beginning because she killed the other girl, which is the one moment that I would genuinely hand to this movie as being like a clever moment that I didn't expect the first time I watched
I
it.
wanted the Saw music to be playing so bad. The da-na-na,
It felt
da-na-na,
very,
da-da-da-da-da.
this feels very post, it feels very Saw sequel in a way.
Yes, yes, it
Where
does.
like you wouldn't even the first Saw movie, you couldn't rip that off like this.
No, no, I don't think so.
You have to have Saw 2 behind you.
Because that's when you establish like what the formula actually
Yeah.
is, and
It's like
that's
the whole
where,
thing is that the person that you trusted the whole time is actually the killer. That's
or
what you do
just
with Amanda in the second movie.
the thing that you completely took for granted the whole time that was just like right in front of you the whole time but didn't get it. It's just like it fumbles it a little bit at the end, but I do respect the psycho energy of just trying to pull this off in the first place just because there is like of like one trope I absolutely adore in stuff like this. It's just the idea of like the student mastermind who like orchestrates
Oh
everything.
yeah.
I mean
I'm
like
a sucker for that shit every time.
this, I mean, like, not to bring it back to Persona 5, but this girl is just gender bent Goro Akechi. And frankly, I live for that shit. I love that kind of nonsense. That said, like, in like my ideal version of this movie is that this is like the midway point of the film. And then like the rest of it is this person like further discovering that they've been fucked over and then she has like another plan to further incriminate him and then like that's what the rest of the movie would be. That's just that would be my personal angle on the material because trust me, I have thought about what I would do if I would make a movie like this one day in the future. Like if I ever got the chance to make like an independent movie that had like not like a budget, but like enough money to get a movie made. This is the like I wouldn't make a movie that aimed for like this, but I would make a movie that takes from this trope wise. I would try to update the formula a bit and make it a little bit more believable because that's the ultimate undoing of movies like this is that in order for me to fully like them despite their flaws is that you gotta nail the characters. The characters are always
Yeah.
the most, and I know that that's kind of a very blanket thing to throw. It's like, of course, the characters need to be good. It's like the thing is that though with these characters is that you need to be able to spend time with them and like them and stuff. That's like that's something that the first Scream movie does really well. Is that like the characters are like hanging out in video stores and talking about movies and like just there's downtime. And to me, as somebody who writes teenage characters very very frequently, I relish the opportunity to showcase contrast. I like to have lots of downtime so that you can express your personality in a context that is not immediately demanding of plot or structure or reveals or something. And that's not always conducive to how movie making works, and it's not conducive to how tightly like put together kind of horror movies often are. Like if you're got like a 90 to 110 minute long movie, you don't necessarily have the opportunity for a lot of breathing room. But I would say that like an ideal version of a movie like this, you maybe cut the cast in half. You take that segment of the movie where nothing really happens, and you take that opportunity to character build a little bit more rather than trying to fake you out. Because like it's kind of just trying to make you think that the horror movie is starting, and it's just kind of a delay. It kind of edges you for a while. It's just like
Uh,
here's where it'll start. Here's where it'll start. No, actually. Oh, but here, no. And it's just like, all right, guys, come on, pick up the pace. And it's just it is of all the things I would say about this movie, the overriding criticism I have of it is that like I feel like all of the parts for something that are genuinely like there is a version of this movie that exists that still handles all of this semi poorly and is really dated and stuff, but something that I would be like, no, there was like legitimately something like special here, but it's all clumsy. It's very all like if you take all of the individual components and you shift it all to the left a little bit, you could have something that I feel like rises above its genre contemporaries. Instead, its clumsiness is hysterical.
uh, yeah, it's just we love a lot of things about this movie, but ultimately it kind of sucks. And Jake, I want you to slap a rating on this because I know we're going to spend longer on what we have to do next.
This is so difficult because it's so hard to rate things like this, especially with a kind of adaptive scale that we have. I would say since this is
How
the
much did you enjoy how much you thought this sucked?
exactly,
That's
I
what
was
I
gonna
that's what
say
I
like
wanted you to get out of this.
median
I
how
wanted you to
much
dislike it, but have fun. How
this
much did you have fun?
since I'm rating it on the bad scale, I'm judging it purely by how much fun did I have watching it. And like, yes, you can argue that I was aided and abetted by some alcohol, but frankly, if you like, you got to set the circumstances right for movies like this. And if you watch enough of them, you know what to do. And I know what to do. So I would say I would give Cry Wolf on this scale. I would give it 3 out of 5 because there if it went further with either the filmmaking that is somewhat admirable or the characters where I do see something potentially good happening with them, then I feel like if these incremental improvements are made, I would probably rate it a little bit higher. But as is, it is a fucking mess. And I love mess. So I had a very enjoyable time with it. It's just also in a very unenviable position of having so many things about it that feel like all over the shop sloppy, but admirable.
Yes, it's a very admirable film
Yeah,
that
like
ended up being kind of a mess,
I would
which
describe
is
it as an
why
admirable failure.
yeah, when I initially watched this a few years back, I was like, I don't really know how to feel about this because
Right?
I could see this being great.
Yes, I like it is one of those movies where I'm like, nobody like fucking saw this, so it would never happen. But like, this is the kind of movie I would want to be remade. Like, you take somebody with like a lower profile horror director who needs to build up their career a little bit, and I know this doesn't happen because this isn't the way that Hollywood works, but mediocre movies should be remade instead of good ones. Like, that's how this should be. We should take things
Well,
and then revamp them.
we got the I Know What You Did Last Summer remake coming out next month.
When I saw the trailer for that and they like fucking you see characters from the original,
Legacy sequel reveal of Jennifer Love Hewitt and
you
Freddie
get
Prinze Jr.
you get the fucking shot of them, just like the reveal shot that's like that. It is the exact same feeling I got in a movie that I guarantee will be as bad as this, in Jurassic World Dominion, where it does the Avengers shot of Alan Grant and like all of them, and I'm like, I don't care. This is stupid. Why are you showing
you already
me this?
wasted this character 30 years ago. Jesus
Ah!
Christ.
Oh,
Anyway.
Christ. I'm so looking forward to not seeing that in theaters and then getting drunk one night and watching it when it's inevitably released on VOD.
Yippee. Anyway, Jake's segment. It's the
Woo!
big one, baby. Watching
Okay.
fucking. How do you want to start? How do you want to start this segment? How do you want me to start talking about this? Because let me preface. Keep this in. I tried to read Full Metal Alchemist on a like manga piracy app that I didn't know that that's what it was in like
As
in
we
like
all
in like seventh grade on my iPhone 3, and I got about 10
God.
chapters in and just got bored and went back to reading Naruto and Bleach because I was already too invested. So what do you want me to get out of this as a person who is really more or less, aside from the spoilers that I've seen online throughout the years, which really all resolved themselves in this part? What do you want me to get out of this? What do you want me to talk about?
Two things. Namely, number one is just, I mean, this show is about sharing our favorite things with each other, so what better thing to do than share my favorite thing? Like, that's just kind of, it's self-explanatory.
Hell yeah.
And the other thing is that when like thinking about angles of this, is that one thing that we have been doing on this channel, the two of us in particular, is talking about shonen anime from around this particular time. And it is a little bit lost in the shuffle now, but Full Metal Alchemist was, in fact, an anime and a manga that came up in the exact same time period that all these other shonen anime were, and in fact, did get put into Shonen Jump. Now, that's the curious thing, is that while it did get put into Shonen Jump, I would be really stretching it if I called Full Metal Alchemist a shonen. Like, it is in the sense that the demographic is there, but in terms of the tropes and the kind of story this is telling, this is not a story about, Ichigo Kurosaki trying to defeat Hollows so that he can go home to his family, or Naruto Uzumaki trying to become ninja president, or Goku trying to be the strongest in the universe, or etc.
It's the closest to One Piece in that there is a large MacGuffin that no one really knows the nature of, but seems to be permutated upon.
It's less a MacGuffin and more a central core mystery that our main characters are tied into, that they must further unravel in order to understand the world around them. And to set the stage a bit here, Fullmetal Alchemist is a manga by Hiromu Arakawa. And Hiromu Arakawa, she has done a couple of things, but Full Metal is definitely, by and large, like the most popular thing she's ever written. That said, I really highly recommend looking into her other stuff. She's been off the radar for a while because she was adapting I think it is a novel series called The Heroic Legend of Arslan, which did get an anime adaptation. That is the only Hiromu Arakawa project I don't know anything about and haven't experienced, just because, well, if it's not from her brain, I'm inherently a little less interested in it.
But
because
she's back.
But
she's back.
She is back. I have Demons of the Shadow Realm right over there, and that might be on the short list for things to talk about on this show. That said, her other big notable thing, other than Full Metal Alchemist, is a manga called Silver Spoon, which is a very, very different kind of story that honestly, I actually think you in particular would really like. It's about, like, it's about like rural life and like living on like a farm. Like these students have to go and like spend this sort of summer at this sort of like this location. It's a very different kind of anime. It's kind of slice of life, but there's like a lot of really good emotional character building and stuff like that. But Fullmetal Alchemist is the thing people know her for, and it came up, you know, in the early 2000s and immediately became hot in Shonen Jump, and so it got picked up by Studio Bones to be adapted in 2003. And this is a very key point that people are still confused by to this day. It is one of the most, like, if you were on the Fullmetal Alchemist subreddit, every other day is, which one is which? Who do I watch first? Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 started production while the manga was still being written. So once they got to around episode 15 or 16, that was how much of the story Arakawa had written, and they were like, so can we just like make shit up? And she was like, sure. And so Fullmetal Alchemist 2003, like I it kind of frustrates me the way people kind of don't meaningfully distinguish that past a certain point, these are completely different shows. Even though some of the same characters pop up in both, like they even reverse two of the homunculized names in that show. Like it has
I
a
know
completely
nothing about 2003.
good. That is for the better. It's just kind of confusing, and it goes in a completely different direction, different themes, different characters, different story, like very different. It's like it is like reading an alternate universe fan fiction of
So
Fullmetal Alchemist.
where does it cut off? Have I gotten to where it cuts off yet? Just by
Basically,
watching
like
for
I
fun?
would say the episode that we leave off on of what I instructed you to watch, which is Beasts of Dublith, is that is like the moment where 2003 diverges, except the fact that because 2003 was produced in the very weird way that it was, there was still a market for the fact that Fullmetal Alchemist became even more successful afterwards, and fans were like, hey, we would still really like an actual anime of the story that we read. So Studio Bones, the same studio, in 2009 got to reboot it as Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. The problem being, like, these were 6 years apart, which is not long at all. And
No.
the production of both of these is highly impressive, especially when you account for the fact that they both are within 50 to 60 episodes. So this was something that they had to put a lot of time, a lot of effort into, and basically they ended up, in order to keep people's interest, they did not want to simply repeat what they had already shown with Fullmetal Alchemist 2003, just with new animation. So Fullmetal Alchemist, the manga, begins in a more arc-based kind of episodic structure. Like the beginning of Fullmetal Alchemist, the very start of it, is in Lior, the Father Cornello episode, which is episode 3 of
I noticed that
Brotherhood.
because that's what threw me off. Is when I
Mhm.
watched the first episode, I was like, wait a second, I don't fucking remember this.
See, that's the
And so
thing.
I pulled it up on my phone. I got on my phone. I was like, I pulled up a PDF of the manga. I was like, let me read chapter one
Yes.
and figure out what's making this like not register for me. And I was like, oh, this is a different thing. And then I got to episode 3. I was like, oh, this is where the manga
The
starts.
first episode of Brotherhood is completely anime original. That is not taken for like the main villain character in that, Isaac McDougal, the freezing alchemist, is a completely made up character that Studio Bones did, because essentially this first part here that we've watched is, I would classify it as a remix where nothing is altered about the source material, but the order in which it's presented and the way that, like, it's very interesting because the original show is like, I would say that like it takes its time a little bit more, and like every 2 to 3 episodes is kind of like its own specific arc, and it'll be like it'll be the brothers going to a place looking for a philosopher's stone, basically, kind of like the Lior setup. Whereas this just kind of takes the parts that are solely connected to the overarching narrative and just kind of streamlines you through it. And this approach has, you know, both good and bad things about it, in my opinion. I think that, for one, the streamlining of the narrative just makes the kind of ability to follow all of the components of the story much easier. Like, there is a lot of stuff that like if they had started doing just the manga, it would have probably been 20 or so episodes longer, which I think would have really hurt its pacing at the end of the day. And because they really wanted to get to that newer material, I understand why these decisions were made. That said, there are elements of it that like characters exist in this show for a little bit longer and a little bit outside of their own particular arcs. Like, for example, we get a little bit more time with characters like Nina Tucker, for instance, is in the show for about 8 to 9 episodes before the episode happens. And this is at least like I
Really?
yes, it's
Really?
right, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Like
Okay,
we
can I just say
yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite part of this experience was seeing the fact that all the shit that I knew about this that I gotten spoiled for the internet from the internet for years happens all in this
Immediately.
first season, right?
Yes,
This
yes.
episode because by episode 10, I was like, "Oh, I've seen everything that I know happens."
Thank God. Because that's the thing about this is that this show has a lot of spoilable shit in it. Like, we have not even scratched the fucking surface yet. Like, that said, I there is a kind of understanding that this sort of first part here is a little bit like, it is a bit abridged. They are taking some parts and they are
Sure.
like going through it like and I will say that there are things that I think the 2003 show does better. For instance, I like the fact that Nina and Shao Tucker are in the story for a little bit longer than just the episode in which they appear in. That being said, because they had to kind of really cut it down to the bare essentials of the story here, I think that the episodic nature of these episodes is so tightly written and so satisfying that each one of these episodes is like it's so complete feeling. And somebody who loves episodic storytelling, I appreciate this approach a little bit more every time I watch it, in the sense that it's just like I get that they kind of changed some things around, but I understand their decisions and do think that there are some kind of improvements that are made. But I am getting a little bit ahead of myself here. The one thing I will say, or let me just set up here, is that Full Metal Alchemist, for those of you who don't know, is the overall story is that we have our two main characters, Edward and Alphonse Elric, who are two brothers who are essentially child prodigies who are kind of abandoned by their father for mysterious reasons early in their childhood, and their mother takes care of them, and they kind of live in the countryside. And unfortunately, she succumbs to an illness, and she dies. And the boys are left being cared by a family friend of theirs, whose parents had also passed away in a war in a neighboring country. And essentially, their father is an alchemist, and they grew up studying
I'm
alchemy
sure
and
we're never
reading.
gonna find out where he went.
And an anime dad
I'm sure that the
missing.
I'm sure that the opening of the anime definitely doesn't allude to the fact that we're gonna see him turn up eventually.
Oh, in fact, I'm not sure how far you've gotten, but like I think
Oh
it
no,
might be relatively.
I only got like halfway through episode 14. I
Mhm.
only found out what you find out about the Fuhrer in the first episode of part two, and then I ran out of
Perfect.
time before we needed to record this episode.
And basically, so because that's the connection to their father that they have, they study alchemy and they are proficient at the art of alchemy to the point where they are like child prodigies. And they are like, there's this thing in alchemy where it's like you're not supposed to do human transmutation, but it's there. We can learn about it.
Yeah,
So let's
you're
try it.
perfectly able to do it.
Yes, it's like you have the ingredients to do it, so let's try it because, our mom is literally all we have. And so they attempt it, and one could say that this goes wrong. And basically, the experiment that they do rebounds, and they end up bringing to life their mother in the form of what I will just call a Cronenberg. And Ed loses his leg, and Alphonse loses his entire body. And
Well,
because
Ed also loses his arm. Well, in
well,
the
that's
second part.
because, yes, that's
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
order
yeah.
to hold on to his brother, he sacrifices his arm to trade his brother's soul back and bonds his soul to a suit of armor. So Al has all but lost his entire body and is a soul in a suit of armor, and Ed is basically has two limbs missing, and because there is a kind of subculture around the idea of this thing called automail in the country of Amestris, which is in which this takes place in, he gets retrofitted with a automail arm and an automail leg because amputations are very popular because of how like war torn their country is, and because it's like in the South it's actually been made into like its own kind of like thing.
Yeah, like
And so
repairing amputations has become as basically its own subset of engineering as a practice.
yes, like its own kind of steampunk thing. And because he is like, he's basically discovered by a soldier of the Amestrian military named Roy Mustang, who hears about a talented alchemist and finds him and is just like, hey, if you come work for the military, if you become literally a dog of the military, as they put it, you will be accessed to resources, money, and research grants and shit that will allow you to potentially search for things that could make you get your bodies back. And so they commit to doing this. Ed becomes a state alchemist, which is basically just a super soldier. It's just a soldier
Yeah,
who can use
or
alchemy
a
and
super detective in where we see
uh
them
I
during
would
this
just
first arc.
an inquisitor, basically, more or less, that has like a specialized form of alchemy. And they have to work for the military, but they do still have like a certain set of freedoms. And so the story is them going through their country and trying to find a link to something called the Philosopher's Stone, which is a legendary item that can bypass the rules of alchemy that, you know, invented by Nicholas Flamel, all that kind of lore bullshit. And so they go through and they have to find a Philosopher's Stone to see if they can get their bodies back. And so it's really difficult to know where to start with something as big as this, but just
Let me just
let
go.
me.
Let
I
me
was gonna
just go.
say, I just want to know, like, what was this like for you, and how did it play?
I mean, as somebody who has vague memories of this, like I alluded to, I was thrown off by the first episode.
Hmm.
The I didn't recognize any of it, and I expected to in a sort of way, even though I hadn't read the manga since I was in high school and I didn't get very far into it. I was immediately struck that I didn't recognize what was happening.
Hmm.
Like I could tell, but I couldn't tell what it was supposed to be. It was a very
Hmm.
interesting feeling. And so watching the first episode with the freezing alchemist McDougal, I was just, oh, this is like a perfect start to a cop show. Uh,
Yeah, more or less. It is a detective setup for sure.
yeah, it's a perfect start to a fantasy detective series about a hard detective who's out of his league, who gets saved by his buddies, and that's pretty much it. And we learn a lot about the supporting cast,
Hmm.
and we learn a lot of implications about the supporting cast, and that's kind of pretty much it. But
Hmm.
it's all executed so well, and the dynamic between Ed and Alphonse is established so well that it just completely works.
My my sons. Edward and
I every
Alphonse.
time Renee walked in on me watching this, Alphonse was like, "That's my son!"
It's and it's true. I would protect these boys with my life, even though they would probably kick my ass. But that's the you gotta nail the dynamic with the siblings. And that's something that Arakawa does in this and in Demons of the Shadow Realm is that I don't know if I've seen many more believably rendered sibling dynamics and relationships than the one she's able to draw of just like they clearly are unflinchingly devoted to one another and trying to help one another, and they feel bad about what happened and all of that, but you know they'll still fight, they'll still kind of get on each other's nerves, but they still love each other at the end of the day, and like, you know, very standard sounding shit, but the way in which it is actually played, the dynamic of the very tried and true red oni blue oni thing they got going on of Alphonse in the big suit of armor, but he's the kind of passive, kind of timid, very soft spoken one, and Ed is the hot-headed fucking like I fucking love Edward Elric so goddamn much because this
I know you
motherfucker
do.
is
We've been
such
over
a
this in our friendship for many years.
he is such a try-hard Shadow the Hedgehog backpack wearing Reddit atheist ass fucking guy, and I love him so much. Like he is Like he is the exact type of character I love, who is a character that is hyper specifically great at a whole lot of things and knows that they're great at that things and like talks themselves up, but kind of sucks at a ton of other things
Oh yeah,
in
it's
terms
just
of like
completely inept at so many
interfacing
parts
with human.
of living and being
Yes,
around human beings.
he's a little shit, and I love him so much for it. He's a know-it-all, but he is deeply likable and deeply understandable. And Alphonse is the kind of like he's the emotional rock for his brother, but he's also the one who has to kind of like, yeah, my brother's a bit, ill-tempered and hot-headed, so if he's gonna go off on a little bit of a tirade, and I'll basically explain to you what's going on instead in a way that you might be able to understand. And they immediately have a lot of kind of they flash a lot more in this first part than I remembered them doing, particularly in like a small stretch of episodes involving the fifth laboratory,
Oh
which
yeah.
frankly, like kind of there's always different parts of the show that hit me really fucking hard, and it'll always be a different thing each time. And for me, this time it was the Alphonse kind of gets in his own head at some point
Everybody
because
in the hospital episode.
yes,
Yeah.
where he gets in it in his head because of this guy that he's, fighting basically is just like, you are technically like an artificially created person, so what's to say that your memories aren't artificially created for the sole purpose of aiding your brother trying to find a philosopher's stone? And this kind of thing just sort of stays with Alphonse, and he's just like completely unable, like, despite the fact that he knows it is completely illogical to believe that somebody like Winry and Pinako would lie to him like that, he can't get it out of his head because, frankly, if I was fucking 14 and in his situation, yeah, I would be like, wait a minute, am I real? Because this is kind of fucked in a lot of ways.
Ah,
And
real boy.
it's like, yeah, fucking, am I Pinocchio? I don't fucking know. And then there's just that part where Ed is just like, uh-huh, okay. And he just kind of has to leave the room, and Winry's just like, you
Oh yeah.
idiot!
It's a lot more exaggerated than that because frankly, what
Yeah.
I love about this anime and what I could t what I how I can tell that it is written by a woman is that is that all the perfectly inoffensive parts of teenage boy emotions are fully exaggerated to a comedic extent, and then like Alphonse is just such a bashful little fuck who cannot handle human interaction, and Ed is just an aggressive little fuck who cannot handle human interaction.
Yes!
I would just like the two of them both being completely incompatible with anybody being able to say anything about them without setting one of them off.
Yep, because there's those two distinct poles, it's you just don't know at any given point how either one of them is going to react to a given situation, just because like everything that they experience and go through is such a high octane set of emotions that they kind of always have to be on their guard and at 11, because if they don't, I mean, they could slip up and die at any given moment, just because this is like, we don't relent from life-threatening danger until like episode 11 of this show when they go to
When they're
Rush
in the
Valley.
hospital the whole
Yeah, well,
time.
yeah, and even then it's like Bradley shows up in that episode and he's kind of like giving off some vibes, and you're like, uh-huh, what the fuck? And then he kind of like subverts, and it's just like, ah, you two kids, we're looking out. And what I love about this first part of the show to me is that I think it does an absolutely flawless job of basically just setting up the chessboard that is this show.
Well, I
You,
mean, not even that. I want to give it a little bit more credit than that, which is like, okay, I think looking back, the third episode is kind of clunky just
I
because of
I agree.
where it is. The actual story of it is a little bit clunky because
Mhm.
it feels like a pilot, but it isn't. And
And it's
but
fast. It's very
the,
fastly paced too.
yeah, they complement it by so basically what happens in the third episode is that they arrive in the city. They find a guy who's using the Philosopher's Stone to do like miracles. They figure out that he's basically wanting to use his newfound power to raise an army and conquer the world and whatnot. And then they immediately reveal that like, oops, you've admitted your whole plan while you're on a microphone to the whole town, and everyone wants to kill you. And then the story is over. Except the
Yes.
story isn't over because we introduce two of the homunculi who kill him. Except we don't really know who those people are yet, so it
Hmm.
doesn't really stick. And so that
But you're
episode
like,
still feels kind of weird, but it does plants some seeds. But for the first like 80% of it, it feels kind of strange because we
no.
never see like Rose again,
Hmm.
and or at least not now. I don't know if
Well,
we see. I
yeah,
don't know.
we do. I'm not
La, la,
spoiling.
la,
I'm not
la,
spoiling, but we do. But we do.
la, 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 la.
Um,
I don't know
but
if we see
that's
Rose again, but
that is a quintessential example of something that I do think the 2003 show just does better because that entire story arc is basically done in like three separate episodes, and you get a little bit more of like Rose and her kind of relationship with her dead fiance. And there's something in the original of just like there is a chimera that Cornello makes to speak to Rose, but like through like a veil of some kind that she can't see because he's like supposed to be like getting better because the resurrection stone doesn't fully like work the way it's supposed to because it's a fake philosopher's stone.
is that
And
in the manga or is
yes,
that?
and
Oh, okay. So
basically
they really
like
abridged that shit.
yeah, the chimera that he synthesized is a parrot because parrots can mimic human speech. And like that part is really fucking like scary. Like that part's like terrifying and gets into some whack body horror shit. But like that part of it just kind of lets it breathe a little bit better. And I think that the pacing of that particular part is just a little bit smoother. And
I'm
then
not
and
gonna
like
lie, this episode, while I do like it and I think it
yeah,
serves the
it's
story
solid.
well, this episode feels like what somebody who hates Midnight Mass talks about Midnight Mass
Yeah, I
as
mean,
being like.
it is very much like you don't really get to the point of why all of it is overall super important till you get that flash to the homunculi where it's like, oh, this guy is like a patsy who's like serving a greater purpose that we're not entirely clued in on because Lior is a location that remains relevant throughout the entirety of the show.
Okay.
So they do revisit it a little bit.
We'll
But
get to that. For the record,
yes,
I'm only
I
like 13 and a half episodes in.
one thing I want to talk about is just the direction of this show, courtesy
Hell
of
yeah.
show director Yasuhiro Ire. And one thing that gets lost in the shuffle when talking about anime in general is just talking about the general direction of it. And like there is a lot of people online a lot of people debate about Brotherhood versus 2003, even though the general consensus is people lean a little bit more towards Brotherhood. But the one thing that people say is that the direction and animation of 2003, they tend to hold that up a little bit more. And I understand why, because it's obviously a bit more, I mean, experimental and strange in pockets. That being said, there is a not small contingency of people who also think that the direction of Brotherhood is boring. And I
It's
really,
it's
I
it's
really got to push
serviceable.
back.
It's serviceable at worst.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the like one thing that I love about Brotherhood is the fucking angles in this show are ridiculous. I
Oh,
love
wonderful.
seeing how like this show employs like fisheye lenses like all the time. And I'm like it is stealing little tiny like actual cinematic techniques in ways that I feel like when it comes to anime discussion online, I'm very kind of it's kind of why I drifted away from the anime community for a long time is because discussions of it online, unless it's like Gurren Lagann, people are like, the direction is boring. Like they don't really know what direction is.
Direction is budget. Direction is budget.
1000%. And
Especially post Gurren Lagann, especially post like fucking what's the example thing at Demon Slayer? Especially
yes,
post Demon
the
Slayer.
basically
Direction is budget.
Studio Trigger and Studio Ufotable shows where they just have endless money and insane directors going. And look, I love the direction in shows like that. They're really great. But I think that when we take things that are a little bit more just cinematically inclined, and that's not to say that Brotherhood does not utilize the medium of animation. Like the budget
It's
on this 64
measured.
episode show is crazy good.
It's measured. I feel like that's the key element here, is that it doesn't always have to go all out, even when people are fighting each other, you
And
know?
even when they do fight, it's kind of always awesome. Like
Well,
that
yeah,
is
like they're
the
simple. The fights are simple because they are simple. They're
yes.
filmed simplistically because they are simple fights.
And they have rules, because one thing I want to talk about is alchemy. Alchemy is the power system in Full Metal Alchemist. It is
Hello, as above, so below, which we both watched this week,
which
independent
where
of
they
each
started
other.
talking about Nicholas Flamel and the Philosopher's Stone, and I was like, wait a fucking minute
Yeah, you
here.
motherfucker. Do you not remember the movie?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know that's a real book, right?
Yeah, I know, but it was still just like it was still like whenever that pops up, my fucking neuron gets activated. But like this power system, it's Ki from Dragon Ball, it's fucking jutsus from Naruto, it's that universe's equivalent of this. And until we get to Hunter x Hunter 2011 and we get halfway into that show and we introduce what Nen is, this to me is like the best anime power system like ever. Because two things. The one is it has really easy to recognize and follow rules. It's like you need a transmutation circle to be able to perform transforming matter in a way that you see fit. Edward can do alchemy without transmutation circles because he has seen the truth, which is a supernatural entity that, zip.
Yeah, Ed has a way to cheat that everybody recognizes.
Yes. And they're like, that's what makes him like such an obvious child prodigy and like so impressive. But it also makes the combat scenarios with Edward feel more fluid because he's able to do more on the fly. And what I love too is that it's so expressive. Like alchemy is the same science, but everyone will use it completely differently. And they will often use it in ways that reflect on their character. Because like, what's the first thing that Edward does in the first episode is he transmutes a little spiked bat to hit McDougal with, and it's got his face on the end of it because Edward's a vain little shit and loves looking cool and wearing red jackets and shit. So
Or like the way that they talk about Scar, where like Scar
yes,
only uses the first step
and then
to fight
stops
people,
to
but he's
destroy
so
it.
good at just destroying things that
Mhm.
he can kill people just with that.
And that's why all of the state certified alchemists, they all have like a nickname given to them based on what powers they specialize in. Like the first person killed by Scar is the Iron Blood alchemist, and he like fucking summons chains and cannons and shit, and like a huge steel like door that can trap Scar in. But because Scar can just destroy things easily, he just fucking reaches through, grabs the dude's face, and then fucking liquefies his insides. And uh I'm also continually quite impressed with just how fucking violent this show is. Like even
Oh
for
yeah,
anime.
no, it's surprising. Like when Scar shows up, the violence of this show gets on a whole nother level. But
I
I don't want to skip over this because we haven't talked about this yet.
Hmm.
Just, I'm on the internet, so I know this is belabored, but
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
just need
yeah,
to
yeah.
stress that I didn't realize the episode with Show Tucker happened so soon. And it is what it is. If you know, you know. Can we move on?
Yep. Well, that's the thing. That's an episode that like retroactively like I remember like that was what hooked me initially is
It's
that
been memed to shit, which is what makes me not really want to
that's
talk about it.
and that's the thing is that it's one of the reasons why fucking like the Full Metal Alchemist fan base is kind of fucking insufferable because they know one joke and it's this joke. This the only joke. It's like you would think that the show ends at episode 4 for fuck's sake. And the thing is that I hate that because I think episode 4 is brilliantly executed, put together, and directed.
Oh
Like
no,
the
I think it's
actual
wonderfully structured. I think it's a wonderful episode.
yes,
I don't need to talk about it beyond that though, because
no,
everybody knows every minute of it.
and
And those
well,
who don't, the people that don't need to hear us talk about it anymore because they would be
precisely.
giving the game away.
And that's the thing is that I actually love the episode after for Reign of
Absolutely.
Sorrows more because this is like when the show becomes itself to me.
Yes, I think so too, because honestly, after these first four episodes where I'm like, oh, this is kind of clunky, and
Mhm.
like this is the meme shit that I recognize. Once we get to episode five, after the end of episode four, which introduces a little bit of a twist that I didn't even know happened. I didn't
Yeah,
even know that
I
was how
mean,
the episode ended because of the way because of the way that people talk about it. So once we get to that, I'm like, oh, we're going. Now we've started.
I
This is where it really gets going.
I fucking love, like, I forget that this happens maybe every time I watch it. And I think it's because my brain forcibly deletes it, is that it opens on this flashback of Ed talking to his mom about like he's a little kid and he like brings her like in a little alchemy toy. And then like it does this thing where it's just kind of holds on Ed's face. And then there's this line of dialogue, and then it shifts over, and then you just see the fucking Trisha Elric conform into the thing that they resurrect her as, and then that thing turns into the fusion of Nina and Alexander, and it's just like,
Oh,
why didn't you save us, Ed? And
that
it's
fucking
like,
got me. I
yeah, I
had
was
no idea that was coming. That
like,
scared the shit out of me.
and that's something that Brotherhood like really like Nina and Alexander are something that haunts Ed until episode 64. Like that is something that follows him
Don't tell
being,
me that.
well, I mean,
Oh, don't tell me that.
that's just how it is. Like that just
Yeah.
that's I mean, like you experience something like that, and how could it not? And like that kind of was like him trying to just reconcile his entire like worldview after this, is that Ed and Alphonse are just like they're in disrepair. Like this episode just starts off with them just like sitting down, and they're both just like, are we like, I mean, they kind of have a are we the baddies discussion, but instead of are we the baddies, it's just like, is what we're doing even remotely ethical or good? And they're both like, I don't know. There's no rule book for this. How are we even meant to feel? And naturally, the form of karmic punishment incarnate comes in the form of Scar, who shows up into the show and like a bolt from the blue.
This dude, I one of the most, and I knew this about Scar when I read the chapters of the manga that I read because I did get far enough that he was introduced. But like Scar is one of the best characters.
Dude, this man has aura. This man just shows up with the sickest fucking like jacket, haircut, sunglasses. You're just like, damn, this guy's cool looking. Like, what's his deal? And
One of the
fucking
best designs, and once you realize what his deal is, you just kind of want the show to be about. I just kind of want the show to be about him a little bit.
low key, it's I have it's why my thoughts on 2003 are so complicated, is because they do Scar real dirty in that show.
Oh
And
boy.
Scar is like, in my opinion, it's just like he is like arguably the best character in
I
the
just want
entire
him to
show.
kind of be the second, not the second. I want him to kind of be the third main character after Ed and Alphonse. Maybe he will
Well,
be going forward, but I don't
see,
fucking know.
and like the show does do a lot of smart things that O3 and even the manga don't do, is that like we see glimpses at a character that is not seen in the show proper for a while, and that even the manga doesn't like foreshadow in the form of somebody whose character's name hasn't been spoken, but you've seen him multiple times, that being Solf J. Kimbley, who is another very aura-driven character who
Oh
we see
God.
in like Isaac McDougall talks to him in the first episode. He like breaks into a prison and he like briefly talks to him. And it's just like,
Oh yeah, that
yeah,
guy.
he's like,
Yes.
hey, I know you were a war
No, they
criminal.
do say his name. I remember
Okay.
it.
He's
I just
like,
it didn't stick with me because they say it really fast, but they do say
yes. And he's got a weird name, but he's just like, I love the introduction that he has in Brotherhood. I think is so fucking great, because Isaac McDougall is this guy who, in retrospect, you go back and watch that first episode and it's like, oh no, this motherfucker was right. Like he was right. You should have listened to him.
I don't know
Well, I
what you
mean,
mean. I don't know the full context of what you mean because
yeah,
I know what happened in the war now, but
but But he like goes and he's just like, "Hey, I'm trying to overthrow this corrupt government, and we were both in the Ishvalan War of Extermination. You know the kinds of things that we had to do there." And then Kimberly just gives this fucking like, I love his voice performance, and he's just like, my motives aren't as sophisticated as revenge or honor. The reason I killed those men was because I could. It's ooh, ooh, I love him so much. He is such an
look,
unbelievable
Ed
bastard.
is Shadow the Hedgehog backpack. That is Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yes. And like as like the show progresses, you keep seeing like Kimberly is in a flashback or a dream sequence that Scar has when he is like knocked out by gluttony and lust. And he's just like, you see him and it's just like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see that like potentially there's like some sort of rivalry and history between these two characters that are going on. So like we're getting some seeds being planted of just like all of these histories between these characters. And that's what this excels at the most. This first season is so great at portraying a lived-in world where every single character has so many different core relationships with one another. It's like we don't know what the deal is with Hawkeye and Mustang yet. But we know that there is something deep that runs between the two of these people that makes them look out for each other in like this really, really interesting, complicated way that like, you get that like Roy is really ambitious and he's like even kind of like, hey, I'm not really totally sure that the system that I'm working for is all that great. I kind of want to commandeer it and steer this ship myself. So I'm going to kind of get all of my people together and have a men on the inside kind of deal. And he's cool. And
Yeah.
you've got Hawkeye, who's, his loyal attendant, who's a little bit more even keeled, but also is like, will absolutely ruin you if you give her a gun because man, that woman is cool. I love Lieutenant
I
Hawkeye
can't
so
wait to
much.
see her pop off because my one complaint is that I expect so much from this character already based on what I know about this fandom, and she's not delivered it yet.
It doesn't take long.
Oh
You
boy.
you her voice actress Colleen Clinkenbeard she gets a great moment in the next part we'll talk about.
Okay. Well,
But
what I wanna go ahead and skip ahead to
mm,
is just the episode with the library.
Sheska, yes.
Because there's a great episode, and this is where I knew this was going to be kind of off kilter for your usual shonen shenanigans. Which there's an entire episode that involves these two characters reading books,
Hmm.
and then they
That's it.
realize what is in those books, and they have a gigantic fucking existential crisis, and it's entirely compelling to watch the whole time, and nothing happens. Like it's
Yeah.
just I want you to know that I love this shit, but it's so refreshing to see an episode of a shonen, more or less,
Yes.
where nobody punches each other, but there's still like dramatic weight to all of it. It's so refreshing structurally to see something that is about people learning and reacting to something and that be the dramatic heft because you're still focused on the MacGuffin. Because that was my problem with Naruto, right? Is because becoming the Hokage is a kind of nebulous process that you know is going to happen when it's time for the story to be over.
Mhm.
But it's like they're actively working towards their goal in this episode, and then they realize there's a complication involved that they have to wrestle with. And
Not
it's
even a fucking
incredible.
Not even a complication. It's just like, what if in the first arc of Dragon Ball, you realized that every time you used the Dragon Balls, an entire planet exploded? It's like, oh, that throws a wrench in some shit, actually. And it makes this into a different, like, I love the entire setup to that show because the first half of it is really like light on its feet. And I love how like I love the tone that they go
Light on
for
its feet with the
with
fucking Show Tucker episode in the first half. Kill yourself. Light on its feet. Get off my
well, with
dick.
with Sheska specifically, they have this fucking
You
setup
mean
of
the
this character.
episode? Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
episode, I see your point.
yeah, where they set up and they have like what they'll do is they bring in Sheska, who's this character who has like she's kind of neurotic and
She
she doesn't
looks
really
like
have a
my
job.
wife. She looks like
She
my
also
wife.
she looks like mine. She's a
Oh no,
librarian.
she looks like my wife. She is your wife.
Yes, like but Jen just said that Sheska from Full Metal Alchemist looks like Renee and is you. So, like, Sheska is this person who's like has an eidetic memory and knew all of the shit that they need in the destroyed laboratory that Dr. Marco sent them to. So basically, she has like this little backstory of just like, I can't, like, I got fired because all I do is read and like all this stuff. And it's playing like the serious dramatic music in the background, but it's doing the like silly kind of cutout style of animation, which I want to point out that element is in the manga, like that very like the
Really?
simplistic character, like yeah, that is a very heavily incorporated part of Hiromu Arakawa's style. And something that I love about her is that she will put in kind of interludes of like commentary of just her talking about writing and her talking about like drawing and stuff. She is personified by a tiny cute little cow. It's very cute. And I want to also point out that one thing that Hiromu Arakawa is great at is character designs, which I will elaborate on. But reason she's great is because Hiromu Arakawa is a bisexual mess and constantly talks about how much she loves drawing muscular men and women. Just all the fucking time. She talks about how much she loves it and how much she drools over it. And frankly, that is exactly the level of horny that I am just
Mwah.
infinitely respectful of. And the character designs in this show are fucking like amazing. Like every single character I see, I'm just like, I want to know everything about you. Like Alex Armstrong looks like he walked off of JoJo. Like, who is this crazy ass dude who constantly gets shirtless and has that cutaway fucking gag where
Well, yeah, that's what
Ed
I
is
love
just
about
like, why did you
Armstrong.
take your shirt off?
That's what I love about Armstrong is that when he needs to be a serious character, he's completely locked in. But when everybody is like annoyed with him, he is fucking annoying and distracts from the
They
pacing of the scene.
they use him as like an audience surrogate sometimes of just like whenever he finds out a revelation about the Elric brothers, he's like always a sobbing mess who's just like the
It's my
dedication.
son!
Yes, he's like the dedication that you have to each other as brothers is so admirable, and it's so funny. And actually, that bit is actually some very smart characterization because we find out a lot about the Armstrong family later on in the show. And I'm not saying shit. I'm not saying shit. Um, but it's laying groundwork that you don't even know is going to be groundwork in the future. And you see characters like, I mean, Ed, Al, great character designs. You see Roy, Riza, great stuff. Fucking and then we also have characters like Maze Hughes, who comes along and is just like
Oof.
embodies
Oof.
a kind of bleeding
Oof.
heart pathos that's in this show. Who honestly the death of Mace Hughes is honestly the part of the first segment of the show that I feel like is the most kind of resoundingly emotional part because he's this character who comes in and he's just like immediately the most likable wife guy ever. Like
Well,
he
he's
just
also just like fed up with all this magic bullshit, which is charming to me.
he's like, you think I'm gonna go out there with you alchemy freaks? No.
Yeah, like when they're fighting Scar, he's just like, fuck you, man. You go die. I'm not gonna do that.
And like as it's such a great like characterization on their behalf of just like he's this old war buddy of Roy's who was kind of like with him from the ground up of just like everybody in the Ishvalan War of Extermination was kind of like you either became a military zealot or you became thoroughly disillusioned with the establishment and you kind of seek to do something about it. And he's one of those people, but he's also his overwhelming wife guyness almost overshadows the fact that he's like one of the smartest characters in the show, epitomized by the fact that he, figures out something that
Yeah,
ultimately
that was.
gets him
Do you
killed.
know how fucking annoying that was? Do you know how fucking annoying that was? Oh, I was
and
just like, what is it?
and,
What is it?
and
What did he
this
figure out?
this also introduces we have the first two homunculi we meet are Gluttony and Lust, who
Yes.
character designs of the homunculi are mwah. God, Lust's character design is so peak, man. I fucking the black hair, the fucking like the fucking X-23 claws and
It's
her
aged so well that it honestly comes off as generic
I mean like kind of. It's
because
like
so many people have tried to rip that off in so many ways.
and it's also like Full Metal Alchemist is one of the like one of the 2000s shonen that like the fan service is like so minimal. It's like disarming how little attention is paid to that. Like
Oh no,
there is a
lust is always a threat.
oh yeah,
You know that every time you see her on the
and
frame, even though she's like, she's playing it up, she's attractive, whatnot, da da
and
da da da. Like
which is
Maze doesn't fall for it,
no
and nobody really falls for it.
yet
I haven't seen a single person fall for it.
um
Not that she's trying very hard because she's either got somebody under her thumb or she's going to get them on the wrong side of her
like
hand.
literally she's the original fucking Resident Evil 8 vampire mommy. Like that design's like literally just Lust. Like it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
like
And
she is sexy, but she's not trying to seduce
well,
you. It's
and
an interesting thing.
the sexiest thing about her though
Is
is
that she is
Laura Bailey's voice.
That's Laura Bailey?
That's
Oh,
Laura
fuck.
Bailey.
Oh, fuck.
I would like to point out that Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham, real life married couple, are in this show. Travis
That's right. That's
Willingham
how they
is
met.
Roy.
Yes,
Yeah,
they
this
met in
is
the booth.
yes, they met in
I
the
knew they
booth.
met in the booth. I didn't realize it was for this.
Yes. And like, and Laura Bailey's typically like she's very much more geared towards like Lucina Fire Emblem voices of just like kind of inverted shonen hero gender swapped protagonist. But in here she's just like, "Hello there, Dr. Marco." And you're like, "Oh, okay." And then you have the evil Winnie the Pooh ass gluttony who just
Can I eat, please?
Can
Can
we
I
eat it?
please eat?
He's got the fucking tongue. But this doesn't. These two show up and they're immediately like I love the
They're
way
never
that
on
they're.
screen for more than like 30 seconds at a time, which
And
is
when they
perfect for what's going
are,
on here.
the fucking Jallo Suspiria ass bathed in red shit at the end of Leor when she's there, and you've got that harsh kind of string swell score, and she's
Yeah.
just like, "Oh, another sacrifice, lost pity," and it's like, "Oh, okay." And then a couple episodes later, we get Envy, this gender goblin.
Well, Envy, I don't want to talk too much about Envy because Envy hasn't done really anything yet apart from kill Maze.
Oh boy. One thing we find out through the progression of these episodes is that we're not sure what the homunculi are. We're like, they're definitely built sturdier than your average human, seeing as Maze buries a knife in Lust's forehead that she's just like rips out and
Yeah,
is letting them fight.
there's not even any indication that anybody knows what they are
No,
until I cheated a little bit. I figured out a little bit in the next episode of the start of part two, but we're not gonna talk
but
about that
it's
right
like,
now.
well, I mean, homunculus by definition, it's just like they are an artificially created person
Well,
by
yeah, but
some
they
means.
don't even say that until the very last episode, and we only have a little bit of an inclination of what that actually means for the characters. Because that's the thing is that it uses so much like real world philosophy of alchemy that does have historical precedent, but
Mhm.
it has a certain interpretation of it that is flexible and not necessarily historically accurate 100% of the time. One, the fact that it actually works, and two,
Mhm. Well, and even still, though, one of the things I found the most fascinating about Fullmetal Alchemist, even when I was a kid, was just how close the setting does play to a kind of. I mean, it's not historical realism, but it's just like you see like Maze Hughes's gravestone marked with the years of like 1885 to 1904, and you're just kind of
yeah,
like, whoa, I'm seeing a lot of things I recognize that I normally don't in anime. Because it's like, yeah, Amestris is a fictional country, but it's like the longer you pay attention, the more that it's just like, this is Germany. It's the Fuhrer.
it's situating itself in a certain allegorical time and place.
For sure, for sure. Like up north, eventually with Drachma, that doesn't really like get super explored, but that's definitely supposed to be Russia. With the east, you have Ishval, which is definitely supposed to just be kind of a nebulous Middle East
Yeah,
stand-in.
yeah,
And
Western Middle East.
and eventually we'll get Xing, which is like the Far East, which is definitely supposed to be Asia. And this element of the setting is so interesting just because of how something I love about the way this setting is shown is just like how warm it feels. Like the interiors of all the rooms in like Central are so like bathed in a kind of orangey glow. Like in all like and it's like all of the military facilities are really like rigid and plain looking and stock and like, they're brutalist in some kind of respect. And it's really great at conveying a sense of environmental interiority. You always know that like this is an intimately lit place where we will experience a nice little scene with Mace Hughes and his wife talking about Edward and Alphonse. And like those moments where like they just kind of stop and the punching doesn't happen. Like all of my favorite moments in this show are just moments that kind of the characters take to themselves. Like my favorite moment in I think episode, it's one of the earliest episodes. It's when Ed and Al go to stay with Mace Hughes and his wife and kid, and it's them in the other room and they're just like broken off from Hughes and his wife, and they're just talking to each other. And Al's just kind of like, "Man, that quiche looked really good. I'm putting that at the top of my list of things that I really want to eat when I can eat again." And you're just like, "Ugh."
It's
And
like the inverse of the one bit that I love that I'll always remember in Captain America: The Winter Soldier is when he's got the little pocketbook that's like all the stuff that I missed out on when I was
yeah,
frozen in the ice.
that's a really good like little just kind of detail of just like a character that has to safeguard themselves from something, and it's just like based off this secret that they have to maintain, and that they have to willingly like now they've got like a list of things that they want to connect with again. And there's such a desire of every character to connect with whatever their idea of like nebulous humanity is. Like Ed and Al are both literally and metaphorically searching for something that will make them more human.
Yeah,
And like
they want to reunite the nuclear family because eventually, they talk about getting their bodies back all the time, but I can imagine a kind of implicit motivation is that even though they've kind of learned their lesson, they want to try to find a way to get their mom back.
and like their relationship with their dad is so skewed because like he doesn't even come back for Trisha's funeral. Like we don't know where Hohenheim is, what he's doing, or even if he's going to matter at all. Like he's just kind of gone. And like there's such a, and then like basically what every character sees as like the most human version of themselves is like with Maze Hughes, it's obviously his own family unit. It's his daughter, it's his wife. With Roy and Riza, it's the ability to lead, but with, their like Roy's idea of leadership is obviously more based around some sort of sense of camaraderie and more like less of the kind of rigid military hierarchy kind of
Yeah.
shit. And like everybody is searching for something. Whether or not they know it at this point in the story or not is yet to be seen. But like we'll have even more characters that will come in like immediately afterwards, and there's always, the search for something. It might be a philosopher's stone, but it might be something else. And
Yeah. Which
that's
is what I want to use that as a segue to talk about my favorite kind of B plot episode
whew.
of this part, which is the Miracle at Rush Valley.
Yes, I
And
love
I
Miracle at
I
Rush
just love this
Valley.
so much because it tells me so much about the culture of this world. It's
Mm-hmm.
such great world building because okay, what happens is that the brothers are on their way to see their old teacher, the person who taught them everything they know about alchemy.
Izumi.
But on the way, their friend Winry, who fixes Edward's automail, is like, I want to go with you because Rush Valley is like the engineering
Capital.
fucking, it's like Silicon Valley for engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wants to go with them and they all go. And there's this whole like A plot, B plot thing where like Edward's badge gets stolen.
By a thief.
Um, they
Panini.
chase down the pickpocket. They get in a relationship with the pickpocket. Um, Winry finds the person who invented automail. Is that what the deal
Just,
is?
just someone who's just like basically the fucking like, if this is Silicon Valley, then this is like the head of the tech company. Like this guy is like renowned for his automail designs, and like
Yeah,
basically he's the
he
head
learned how to
honcho.
make it this way that Winry like ripped off.
Mhm.
But Winry goes to find this guy. She wants to become his apprentice. He's like, no, I'm not interested in the teaching. Da 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 da. But he's got a daughter-in-law that's about to have a baby.
Mhm.
And if you've watched television, if there's a person that is pregnant that has not been in the show before, you know where this
They're gonna
episode
have
is
that
going
baby.
now. Yeah, you know they're gonna have the baby by the end of the episode. And so the episode goes on. They get stormed in. The water breaks. They deliver the baby, and Winry asks again after she delivers the baby, and the guy Dominic is like, "I'm not going to teach you because I still don't want to do that, but I can tell you where my friend is, and he knows just as much as me." And Winry goes out to find that guy, and we don't really see what comes of that yet, but it's still like it all works, and it's a great, like I said, it's great world building episode in the same way that like in Charmed the first time that they go up there
Yeah,
it's that kind of shit
yeah.
of like the first time that you see something that is fundamental to how the world works in a story like this is always going to be really exciting, and that's what makes
Oh
this episode
yeah.
work so well for me.
And I
uh
I just love the scene where Ed and Al first meet the woman who's pregnant, and Alphonse is like really timid and is just like, "Hey, can I like touch your stomach?" And then they do it, and then Ed and Al are both like overwhelmed by how they're just like, "Whoa, holy shit." And it's just like it is such a
they're children, these are
yeah,
children.
it's like this is such a blindingly sincere, just like very, very sweet moment that you're just like, and not to mention, you need this episode after the previous 10 episodes, which are
Yeah,
fucking
this is
rough.
this is after Maze dies.
Yeah, so you
Um,
you really need a kind of reprieve of just like, and it shows you just like the kinds of things that they still like value and take stock in, because it's like you see the Edward in fucking Leor, and you wouldn't predict that this smarmy little shit who really likes to talk about how, God isn't real, you stupid moron. And like he's not the kind of person who you would see at like freaking out over a tiny little baby and like the miracle of life, but like as an alchemist, he has an inherent respect for just the like cycle of nature, which gets
yeah,
elaborated upon when they talk about their relationship with their teacher Izumi Curtis, who, look, I don't know if you have the specific proclivity that I do in terms of muscular anime women, but
I'm a
listen,
Naruto fan. You know I do.
listen, I love Izumi Curtis so much. She's she's so awesome. Like she like immediately you get like you see her character design and it's just like, oh, this is an ass kicker. Like you like this is somebody who's not going to take a single iota of shit. She is
Well, and
going to
it's
beat ass.
made immediately complicated and not a caricature. And I mean, this works for a character like Tsunade in
Hmm.
Naruto as well. They complicate Tsunade as soon as they introduce her, and they
Hmm.
complicate Izumi as soon as she's introduced as well by having them realize that, oh, she's sick.
Like
Because in
very
the
sick.
meantime, in the years between when the Elrics trained with her, she tried to have a baby and lost the baby and did the thing that they did to try to get the baby back.
And
And
instead of scramble it or getting rid of her limbs or her body, it's scrambled up her insides to the point where she's kind of like constantly vomiting blood and shit.
yeah, she basically has POTS. Uh,
Hmm.
like the inverse of POTS, where she's still like skinny
Hmm.
because like her insides are just contorted.
Hmm.
Uh,
And like there's such an interesting little parallel there with like how they're really initially afraid to talk to her because, they trained under her before they did human transmutation because that's how they learned to do it in the first place.
they're scared
And
that she's going to find out. They talk about that in
yes.
the episode before.
And naturally, she does. And but then they sort of have this sort of reconciliation of just like, hey, I kind of did the exact same thing. And she's like, I still can't like in good conscience sort of aid you in this, but I will still like I can't help you in the specific way that you want me to, but I'll still help you in the same way that Winry was also in Rush Valley, in the sense of just like there is there is always a line of like you go beyond this taboo, you go beyond this wrong that you've committed, and there is a point of no return, but that doesn't mean that you just have to sit there and deal with it. There's always an alternative solution. There's always a different way to solve your problem sideways instead of solving it head on.
Well,
And
yeah,
that's
it's
what
like
this
you're
show
not.
constantly does
Yeah.
structurally.
I mean, it goes for Izumi the same way that it goes for Ed and Alphonse, where it's like you're not dead. So what do you do after that?
That's that's my favorite line in
Like
this
that thing that
first.
that thing doesn't kill you. So you just got to figure out what to do after that. Like
It's
the truth, the being doesn't kill you. It forces you to live with it.
And in the Lior episode, that's what I love. The very ending episode is just like the best line and word has in like the first part of the show is you've got two legs, so stand up and walk. And it's just like, oh fuck, that was actually pretty hard. But like it's a point. It's just like, and the fact that it's like you're standing on one leg that's not even your own. It's just like there's something that's just like really palpably kind of powerful about shit like that. And I love that this show is so good at coming up with just like not subverting, but just the idea of every person in this show is so highly motivated by what they're seeking after that they think that there's only one solution to their problem because they are so motivated. And it's always about being like, yes, but no. It's just like you get locked in and you get these incredibly motivated characters, which is why ultimately I think the cast of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is probably my favorite cast of any fictional character assembled together, is because everybody is so fucking highly motivated. There is not a
Yeah.
single character in this story that is not dedicating their life to doing something specific that they love about like just being alive.
I'm gonna segue to the rating and talk about the last episode and a kind of abridged point because I know that the situation here is going to bleed into the next part, so I'm just going to talk about it there anyway,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is that the last episode is a little bit underwhelming because
Hmm.
it's a battle episode. It's a
Yeah,
battle
for
episode.
sure.
And the battle ends on a cliffhanger, and that's where the season ends. And if that's how we're gonna that if that's how we're gonna talk about it, I'm not gonna talk about what happens afterwards, even though I know a kernel because I watched like the first half of the next episode.
Yeah,
And
it
so
throws you
I'm
into
just
the next
gonna
story arc immediately.
yeah, it's a good seg. It's almost a good segue into the next arc. If it didn't end on a cliffhanger that makes you think that this battle is going to go on for like two more episodes before you figure out what's really going on. That's not to belabor it because I don't know all of what's going to happen afterwards, but it's just to say that it's not a great conclusion for a arc in a
Yeah,
typical shonen way.
and that's the thing is that I don't even know if you could say that it is the conclusion. It's just kind of like they're just kind of going with the story for as long as they need to go for. Like, there's no like it does have like, we do have cutoff points where the intro and outro of the show will switch, but it's still kind of just like because the manga itself was not as rigidly structured as say your Naruto's, your Bleaches, and your One Pieces. It's just kind of going until it needs to stop.
Yeah, as far as your actual like season of television
Yeah,
structure,
it's wonky.
which is what I'm thinking about this as. It's wonky in the beginning and then it gets really good in the middle and then it gets
Hmm.
a little bit wonky again at the end.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to say about that. And we're going to talk about what happens in that 13th episode in a little bit more detail in the next part. But I want to slap a ranking on this. And frankly, a lot of my criticisms that I've levied at the pacing of this is going to contribute to why I'm giving this a four, both
No,
because
that's
like
yeah.
it's a little bit of a clunky season of television,
Yeah.
despite how many episodes that I find just like completely perfect. And
Yes.
what I
Yes.
love about this story as a season of television, which is what you pitch this to me as, it
Yes.
leaves a little bit to be desired and not just in the like, oh, this is great, I want to watch more, but like, it's a little bit messy.
Like if I was rating it, I would probably give it the same rating if I'm being honest for that exact purpose. It is a it's just trying to be a lot of different things to a lot of different people because of the unique circumstances that this production was placed in. So, yeah, I mean, to some extent it is slightly compromised. It's just that like that it's just that like yes, it is an issue. Its ability to impact my enjoyment of it is like negligible though. Like I
Oh
just
yeah.
it's just like yeah, I mean it's an issue but like whatever also, like
Yeah, like I really enjoy the parts of it that I really enjoy to the point where these issues don't bother me as much as they might, partially because I know I still have a lot left to go that might lighten some of the feelings that I'm having just looking at these 13 episodes by themselves.
yeah, I don't want to say that like all of your problems will immediately be solved, but like after this the show just kind of like plateaus in a good way because it just never
I think I'm always gonna feel the way that I feel about these first three episodes, which is like it's
yeah.
kind of a big fucking mess.
There,
Uh,
well, see, and that's the thing is that there is a perfect version of the beginning of this story that lies in between how 2003 does it and in between how Brotherhood does it, and it's called the manga because it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
like,
ideally I would just read the manga and get that out of it. But
and
this is
that
what I'm reviewing, so this is what I'm
yes.
saying.
So like the version of this that is in the manga is one where basically all of the issues are solved. It's like it lets it breathe a bit more. All of these things get a little bit more time and it's not as like it's not trying to be a season of anything. So it's just kind of whatever. So like yeah, there are problems here, but at least as far as I'm concerned, immediately after this is when the show rocket ship boosts up to number one and then just stays there the whole
I
time.
mean, yeah, I watched enough of the first episode of the next part just while I was waiting for us to get on this video call that I saw a big reveal that absolutely knocked me against a wall. And I am
Yeah,
so fucking excited.
the the uh
I am
the
so fucking excited, man.
the the mystery slash Maria Ross sub arc that we're about to get to is like one of the best part. Like I'm pretty sure you'll basically all I'll say is this. Once you get to an episode titled Cold Flame, we're in for some shit. We're in for
Ah!
some shit.
All right, let's get the scores on the board.
Woo!
We got me at a 16. We got Jake at a 17. You need to step up your editing, motherfucker, because every time told you to do this, you don't actually put the numbers on the
I
screen.
did last time,
Did
motherfucker. I
you?
did. I did. I did. It was just the one time I forgot. Damn it. But
Okay, put the numbers on the screen, motherfucker.
boom. I'll put
All
them
right,
big, bold, red right on your face, right on my face. Fucking.
all right.
Okay,
What's
so
what's my bad?
this is your bad. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead of time and be like, because we are concurrently basically doing Full Metal Alchemist with whatever we're doing now, I do not want to saddle you with something that is also going to take a shitload of time. So I am limiting it to things that are easily consumable, but still something I want to talk about or share with people. And this is something that basically this is my equivalent of Cry Wolf, essentially, is that this is precisely my brand of silly nonsense, but also I would say that if I have a favorite so bad it's good movie, this is definitely it. And I have shared it with many people over the years for reasons that will become incredibly obvious once I say what it is. But it's a rip roaring good time. That is all I'll say. This is not a
Look
bad
at us being
recommendation.
nice to each other.
Yes,
Hello.
this is not going to be a punishment necessarily. It is going to be something that I do anticipate you enjoying in one form or another. I think I have only exclusively watched this in Zoom calls with friends. So, but Jen, tell me, what films by Dario Argento have you seen?
I have seen I've seen Tenebrae. I've
Good one.
seen are there any that I'm forgetting that I've seen
I take it you've seen Suspiria.
when I was a little too drunk to remember? Actually, I haven't. I've not seen the original Suspiria before. I gotta fix that. I've seen Deep Red and I've seen Tenebrae.
Let me just write something down here real quick.
Oh, I've seen three. I've seen Deep Red, I've seen Bird with Crystal Plumage, and I've seen Tenebrae.
Well, Jen, you can add another one to that list because the movie that I am recommending to you is the
Is it?
film at
Is
the
it?
end of the trilogy of films that Suspiria is in. My
Yes!
recommendation is Mother of Tears.
I know about
Uh,
this. I know what
I
happens to the baby in this movie. I'm so excited.
Yeah!
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite bad good movies, but it also there is an element to this. I have a theory about this movie, and I'll save it for when we actually talk about it. But this movie has a lot of connective tissue with some other stuff that I think make it very interesting to talk about in a lot of respects. But Mother of Tears is this was one of the first movies I remember we watched this in the same session where we watched Spy Kids 1 and 2 and then followed it up with Mother of Tears.
Oh my God.
And that was one of the best nights of the entire COVID pandemic, man. That was some shit. This is a good one. The only thing I will say about it is that goddamn this movie is ugly as sin.
Oh no.
It is
Oh
bad looking.
no.
So
Okay.
wait, you've seen the Suspiria remake, but not Suspiria.
Listen, man,
Interesting.
it was
Interesting.
2018. I was sleeping on my ex-girlfriend's couch. I did what I had to
It was
do.
a different time.
It was a different me. I was catching up on season one of Barry on
Ugh,
not friend of the show, but longtime friend John Bizub's HBO Go account.
fucking I love Barry. That's a good fucking show.
Yeah, we should maybe talk about it or
You know
something.
what? Yeah, maybe we should one of these days because I'm
We'll
one of
get
those people who really likes the third season of that show.
Yeah, we need to come on we need to come online as second half of Barry defenders. Anyway,
You are also a second half of Barry Defender.
I'm a
Good
complete
fuck.
second
Yes. None
I'm a
of my
complete
friends are. It
I'm a complete
sucks.
second half of Barry Defender, except for like I'm a little bit nuanced about the last episode. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see where
yeah.
people are coming from. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, yeah.
My recommendation. Oh my God, I slaved over this. I struggled with this because you did something to me that really fucked me over. which is that you handed me like your number one on a
I
silver
did. I
platter.
really did fuck you over.
You handed me the number one on a silver platter, and so I was like, okay, what do I do to
Match the energy.
challenge it? What do I do to challenge it? As I started going through like my top 20 list on Letterboxd, I was like, wait a second. Has Jake seen Unbreakable? Because Unbreakable is my favorite movie. Of course you have. Maybe it's been a while, but you've seen it
Has been a while.
before. I know you like it, so
Yes.
I'm not gonna throw
Very
that
good
at you.
film. Very good film.
And there's a lot of those cases where I was just like, I was digging through your Letterboxd account like a hater.
Oh, dude, I do the same thing with you. If you didn't think I'm just like, it's been a while since you've seen the Suspiria remake.
But I think I have a way to do this while also kind of fucking you over a little bit.
Oh, goody.
So there are two people whose oeuvre we are very interested in, who put out recent works that resemble late career moves. And I've had to kind of do a toss up between which one I want to recommend. I'm not going to tell you what the other one is because we might get to it later. But the one I am going to do is one that is going to, one, take a while. So get ready. And for two, bring us into a new medium for the show, a medium that we've never talked about on the podcast before. Jake, I want you to play Death Stranding.
Yes! Yes! Let's go! All right.
We're gonna talk about Death Stranding.
Bro, I
Because
thought I was gonna be the one to break the Hideo Kojima glass. I really thought I was gonna be the one, but you
and
beat
that's
me
how
to
I'm
it.
fucking you over,
You
motherfucker.
beat me to it. Fuck.
And because I'm about to play the second game because we got our Bonnaroo refund, and
Mhm.
me and Renee woke up one morning and they were like, "You want to go buy that PS5 we've been talking about?" So we bought a PlayStation and we ordered a copy of Death Stranding because we couldn't find any physical copies in any of the stores that we went to. So I'm gonna start Death Stranding 2, and you're gonna play the first game, and we're gonna talk about the first game.
Yes. Oh, this is something that I have had on my backlog ever since it came out. And I am like, with how big of a Metal Gear fan I am, it's disgusting that I've not touched Death Stranding. Like, I mean, like, no excuse, not
And I
even a
knew
single
this
one.
because I had mentioned it to you before, which is what really planted this nugget in my brain that I should
Hmm.
bring it up. So this is the time. This is it. You're playing Death
Fuck.
Stranding.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'm in. I'm fucking in. Let's go. Death Stranding versus Mother of Tears. You know, fucking, that's a Hideo Kojima ass pairing if I've ever heard one.
We're
What?
gonna break the rhythm. Can I please do the outro for this? Because I
Oh,
have.
fucking please.
Next time on Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray, the two of them will both reckon with tears from abstract mothers.
That's good. Did you know that that's an oblique Silent Hill reference that kind of ties into Hideo Kojima because
No,
of abstract daddies? God, that's
God
good.
damn it,
That's
no.
good. That I we I think it was Willie Madden who said this, but I will be unpacking Hideo Kojima's bullshit until I am dead in the ground. Oh,
And
hell yeah.
what?
And cut. Fuck it.
Full Metal Alchemist.